Ladies and gentlemen, of course, saving the best region for last. It is the North American Sprint Series here at Paul Ricard for the final race of Season 10. And of course, it's going to be a super sprint round, so we are going to be having two mini races here tonight. I'd like to welcome everybody to the broadcast, wherever you may be in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amone, and for the first half of this North American broadcast, it is going to be just me here in the booth. And then after the first split is over and done with, we'll be joined by Kevin Parody and Sam Raworth. Two guys I've been working alongside with. Kevin, of course, for both NA and EU for this whole season, and Sam is a newer addition in the last couple of races, and he has already found his footing rather quickly. But yeah, we are back in Europe here at Le Castellet at a track that's very polarizing in the sim racing community. Some people love it, some people hate it. I am in the camp of I do not like this track. It's not fun to race on, but, well, EU gave us a very good reason to believe why it is such a great track to watch a race on, especially with all the battles and the large amount of slipstreaming you get along that Mistral Straight, the back half of the track. And for those of you who don't know, it is a theme night here. It's ugly liveries, so we're going to take a peek around the grid. Timothy Flomger rocking sort of a gold standard livery, and I like it. I don't know, something about it just screams I'm a threat and I know what I'm doing. Kenneth Portis here, standard, almost Buzz Lightyear livery. Jonathan Clifford, same livery he's been running. Michael Landry, yeah, I think, Quasar Sim Racing Ugly, yeah, I think we may have a winner already. I'm looking at the rims, the colors, the pink and the purple, or the pink and the green. Almost reminds me of like Goosebumps. If anybody remembers reading those books way back when, I think I still have a couple in my room. I gotta find them. Renato Dornelis, rocking the same livery he always does. Thomas Pierce, here we go, Mr. Audi's Ugly Ride, and boy howdy, he definitely got that one on lock. Interesting color combinations, to say the least. It is quite something. The colors that you are freely allowed to put together in this game. The developers, I'm sure, are looking at this and going, "Ah, yes. Why?" Also, hello to Don and Nathan. Thank you for joining us. I saw your messages earlier, and I had forgotten to mention them until just now. Austin Carpenter still with that hot pink McLaren. Nowhere close to ugly. Braden Thompson, same livery he's been running all season. Brian Rasco as well, same livery. Still a huge fan of it. Leon Burke as well with the same livery. So some people not getting the memo. No problem on that front. You live and you learn. Thomas Dagg, same Audi livery. Kevin Parody, here we go. This is looking good. Borf Racing. That is what I want to do after looking at this car skin for more than 2 seconds. Some lovely, lovely colors. Again, we really want to make sure the devs regret giving us such freedom to deface their cars like this. I mean, it's a perfect combination of my 3-year-old picked out the colors. But Kevin Parody here, someone who will be joining us later in the evening. Grant, thank you for joining us. Pretty fast times. Yeah, 53.9 by Flomger. We had some low 54s in the EU splits, and we got to qualifying. We were rocking very low 54s, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, last lap, Delilah Hazel sniped pole position with the 53.9. Unfortunately, her race did not end on pole position, but it was still a pretty solid result nonetheless. And then managed to do better in that second race with the reverse grid, taking advantage of that. Chris Frizza, as well as having the same livery. And of course, last but certainly not least, Mr. Sam Raworth, Colorblind Motorsports. I'm sure, can you be colorblind to yellow and orange and purple? I know you can be colorblind to blue and red. I don't know, but we'll take it. We take it at face value for what it is. But yeah, it is Flomger right now in the pits with that 53.9 fastest lap. And then you've got Thomas Pierce behind almost half a second, 54.38. And then Clifford, a very, very well-deserved P3, 54.5 for him. Portis, a 54.735. Michael Landry, a 54.775. 4 hundredths between them. And then it's Renato Dornelis, a 54.9, and he's actually the last driver to be in the 54s. And then you have Austin Carpenter with a 55.06, just knocking on the door of the 54 club. And then there's quite a jump down to Braden Thompson with that 55.8. And then those are the only two in the 55s. And then the 56 is 56.025 for Rasco, 56.030 for Burke, 5 thousandths between the two Audi drivers. And then Dag with a 56.362. So a little over 3/10 back from his fellow Audi drivers. Kevin Parody a 56.4 and then a 56.6 for Frizza. Raworth has yet to set a lap, but this is free practice. It doesn't really matter. You're looking to just get around the track, get yourself warmed up, get the car ready to go, maybe make a couple of adjustments on the setup before we hop into qualifying. 2.5 minutes just about here, and finally crosses the line with a time that the track has given him for not exceeding track limits of 57.72. This is a track that personally I have struggled on in the past, which is probably why I don't enjoy running it. Not only that, when you're hot lapping, it does get quite boring being out in no man's land. We did see it with the EU split, with some packs forming, and then there's always one driver who finds himself just between two battle packs, and at that point, well, the guys in front are slipstreaming away, the guys behind are slipstreaming closer to you, and you're just sort of sitting there doing laps until time expires. But for the uninitiated among us who have not seen the Super Sprint format, and to be fair, you may have missed it, it was in week 1, and that was way back. The way the Super Sprint works is we have qualifying as per usual, 15 minutes, and then we hop into a 20-minute race 1, so your standard pub lobby sprint. And then after that, what we end up doing is we take those top 12 drivers and we reverse grid order them. So if you finish in first, you're going to start 12th, second is 11th, third is 10th, so on and so on. Everybody outside of that top 12 goes out and qualifies. So then what that does is it sets up the grid for the second race, which is a 40-minute race. And keep in mind, both of these races do not have a required pit stop. They are just, you know, filler up and go. But with the second race, what will happen is the race director will start calling out car numbers, and those cars will come forward in order. And then once those first 12 are sorted out, the drivers who actually did qualifying will then follow up in their respective positions. Now, this does cause a little bit of delay in the race start, because what the game is doing is it's actually waiting for the driver who is considered first in Quali 2 to cross the necessary trigger, and then that will start the race. So for a lot of drivers, that actually ends up messing up their timing a little bit, because they're used to starting at around a certain point, depending on their pace. And I don't think we've had drivers in the past, you know, jump the start all too much, you know, speed up when they should, and everyone's pretty good about making sure they wait for those green lights. But for some of the newer drivers, they have had a little bit of trouble the first go around, but usually after that they are set and ready to go. And they do get reminders constantly of, hey, you know, here's how it's going to work, here's this, here's that. And we sort of just go from there. But free practice is over and done with, so it's still Flomger on top of that 53.9. Nobody is even close to him. Thomas Dag right now is on a bit of an improvement, so he'll cross the line, bumps himself up one spot, 56.15 for the Canadian. And speaking of Canada, Michael Landry right now on a bit of an improvement. Could find himself overtaking P2 from Thomas Pierce if he can manage to get everything sorted out, done and dusted by the end of this lap. Of course, coming up to this final corner, a very heavy braking zone, and a spot where drivers do like to overtake if they didn't get it done on the Mistral Straight and following corners. So, Landry down the line, and across he goes up into P2 by a couple of tenths. And now we hop into qualifying. Everybody just getting out of the pits right away. And if I'm a betting man, I think I see the Honda of Kenneth Portis again. He is always the first one out, regardless of what track it's on. I don't know how the pit box system works. I'm assuming he gets here like right as the server opens, and then chills out and says, "All right, this is good," and goes from there. Would not be surprised, but he will be setting the benchmark for everybody else to follow. W2, welcome to the stream. Yep, strong finish to Season 10. We had an incredible outing earlier in the day with EU. Now, if you're from maybe Europe, you may be asking yourself, what do you mean earlier in the day? It's tomorrow. Well, I was here earlier in my day to get the broadcast going at about 2:15 p.m. Eastern. And stream started up about 15 minutes ago, 7:45 p.m. Eastern. But yes, let's hope North America can put on a show. We are missing one driver. We do have a small grid. Or actually, no. Or no, we are, yes. We're missing Patterson. Marked attendance as going to be here, but has not shown up quite yet. I'm sure if he shows up, he's going to just body everybody out of nowhere. But for right now, drivers getting out there, getting their cars warmed up. We shouldn't be seeing their best laps until a couple of tours around the circuit, as at that point, tires and brakes are up to temp, tires are up to pressure, and, well, the joints should be loose and ready to go. So Portis around this final bend onto the front straight, and he is going to start his first flying lap, so we'll stay on board with him, barring some sort of skill incident. But he's been pretty decent and very, very good about keeping his car between the white lines at all times. Bricks, yeah, wish I was in this race. You know, I talked about it not too long ago, and we talked about it in the EU split as well. Paul Ricard is a very polarizing track. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like racing on it. However, watching races on it is incredibly fun. I mean, if you go back and you watch that EU race, it was an absolute blast start to finish. So we'll see what the boys and girls in North America can do. Of course, this is the first of two splits here tonight. We'll be hopping over to Vibe with Druids split after everything is done here in Corkscrew. And of course, Sam Raworth, the 339 Ferrari, and Kevin Parody, the 23 numbered BMW, will be joining us in the booth. Sam is pretty good about getting there, or getting here rather, right as his race is over and done with. Meanwhile, Parody has to do a couple of things on the home front before he can pop into the booth. Now, the one thing with Paul Ricard is that you can actually, it's pretty easy to, well, I shouldn't say pretty easy, but easy relative to other circuits in my experience, to actually get a puncture, which I'm sure is something not a lot of us are too familiar with. Most of us were maybe dealing with some flat-spotted tires at the very least. But these curbs are pretty deadly for these Pirelli tires. And we have seen it before. It did happen in the endurance race we did here not too long ago. There were some drivers that ended up picking up punctures. And that's always a new feeling. But around Portis goes. So, we'll see. Did he keep it in the lines well enough as he crosses the line? You know, 54.9 to start us off, but he has got a bunch of drivers behind him. And we're going to see who is going to overtake that spot. Burke with a 56.7, Clifford a 54.7, and it is Thomas Pierce a 54.08. A very good first lap time, mind you. And I think he's going to be gaining a few more tenths as that car comes up to spec. Michael Landry, a 54.762. That is 5 thousandths faster than Clifford. Clifford actually going back into the pits to make some changes to his setup. We look here, Brian Rasco does not get a clean lap, and Renato Dornelis, a name that we are very familiar with up front, makes it P2 with that 54.5, still half a second back from Pierce, who's already gone ahead and done what he does best. Leon Burke right now, P9 for him. Kevin Parody makes it a P8 start at the moment, a 56.64. My fellow commentator buddy of mine. And then after that, Sam Raworth should be able to get his first flying lap in. And we'll see where he stands. Hate this track. Don't particularly like the runoff design. Said I find the layout very difficult to master and extremely rewarding when you nail a lap. I cannot... I agree with the runoff comment. I also agree with the layout difficult to master. I can't agree with the extremely rewarding when you nail the lap because I've never done that. So, can't relate. But Raworth does not manage to improve his lap time, unfortunately. Jonathan Clifford back out on track. A little bit of heat in the tires, weaving side to side, making some setup changes. The driver, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times, improved so much between this season and last. Up to Pro-Am, and definitely deserved. He has been an absolute threat on the track. Kenneth Portis improving up into P2, a 54.57, and that is just about 13 thousandths behind the Brazilian of Dornelis, who finds himself on a bit of an improvement, but also falling down the order. Timothy Flomger making it a 53.9, albeit just barely pushes Pierce down. Dornelis right now could possibly join the 59 club, as he is just a little over half a second here as he exits the final corner. He's going to need a little bit more. Crosses the line. A 54.005. 6 thousandths is what he's going to need to dip below that 54 barrier. That is insanely close. And hopefully he can find that pace in this coming lap. Brain Thompson, another driver out there on a flying lap. Chris Frizza, P12 at 56.56. And then we've got Leon Burke in 13th with a 56.76 parity. That 56.29 has improved on his personal best. Rasco as well, a 55.89. Dag, 55.79. Thompson, 55.47. And then we start dipping into the 54s with Austin Carpenter at 54.84. So some quick times coming in here. I do agree, W2. Getting a lap that isn't invalidated is a win. 100%. Also, welcome George Fowler to the broadcast. Glad to have you. Hope your day's been going well. Hope you're ready for the final round for Corkscrew split. Here as we get just under 7.5 minutes into qualifying. And a very, very good race with Europe earlier today. And hopefully North America can round us out here to send off another amazing season here for the OOR. Now, next season, it will not be called the Sprint Series. It'll be the SimRig Sprint Series, getting sponsored. So if you're looking to join the Sprint Series next season, registrations are open. OctaneOnlineRacing.com.au. Fill out your region. Fill out your time, where you think you're going to be put rank-wise, whether you're thinking AM, Pro-Am, or Pro. And then pick your cars and, well, wait for us to sort through it and consider your application. And hopefully get ready for a month, or 3 months rather, of action in 1 month's time. We'll start back up again in October, just in time for spooky season. I'm sure we'll have a theme night for liveries where it's all Halloween themed. Do you know if all these drivers also race iRacing? I do not know that off the top of my head. I know there are some drivers here that do race in the iRacing portion of this organization and just iRacing in general, but I can't really speak for everybody, unfortunately. And custom liveries too. Yeah, I'm very excited to see that. I need to see some good memes on these cars. I need at least one solid meme and I'll be happy. Yeah, we are going to be sponsored by SimRig, so if you're looking to maybe up your getup a little bit, they've got you covered. Wheels, bases, rigs, and everything in between. One of the largest suppliers of sim racing equipment in Australia is where you're going to go, SimRigs. Thank you, as always, for your sponsor. We appreciate that. Back into qualifying, though. Flomger starting another flying lap. Has made a couple of adjustments to the setup. Same with Renato Dornelis. The customer support is great. Have not used them, but I will take your word for it. I have my wheel, and I have my gloves, and I'm all set. Maybe get some boots. Maybe some sim racing socks. Because that'd be kind of neat to have. Just want to know how people compare iRacing to ACC. I've played iRacing. It's not really for me. It's the subscription model that kind of gets me. GT3s handle a little differently, in my opinion. I'm very, very used to how ACC runs, so I haven't put as much time into iRacing as I have ACC, or even AC itself. This game's older, more moddable brother. Also, it's just a very fun game overall. I know they're making Assetto Corsa 2. Don't know when that's going to come out, but I know when it does, the original Assetto Corsa is going to probably be dead immediately, and everyone's going to go over and play the new game. But I still enjoy ACC a lot. I even pop open AC, just drive around, have just a nice little stroll through the rain. I'm still upset they haven't added my car to Assetto Corsa. I'm sure there's a modder out there. If anybody knows any modders, if you could put like a, oh, I don't know, like a 2000 Toyota Corolla in the game and like a green color, not like a bright green, kind of like a deep green, I would be pretty happy about that. No reason I'm saying this at all. But it looks like we're not really getting a lot of improvements on times, although Brian Rasco doing pretty well right now. A little over half a second here as he's rounding the last couple of corners into that hairpin, very heavy braking zone. We should see some overtakes down into here if drivers are close enough and feeling brave enough, but most of the action is probably going to go into turn 1 and the Mistral Straight. So Brian Rasco, P11 up to P8, a very good improvement from him, 55.26 to set himself up potentially for a 54 if he can keep it together. So we also have Thomas Pierce right now, a 54.08. So he is also close to getting below that 54 barrier. Still 3 minutes to go, so still a couple of laps left for some of these drivers to improve. Flomger has not improved himself. 55.15 indicates that he's gone a little bit wide. And Dornelis a 4:10.79. Definitely some setup changes. Dornelis, a driver I very much respect. I mean, I respect all these drivers, of course, but him especially. I've had the pleasure of racing with him. Flomger, Clifford, I believe Portis at one point, and Carpenter and Rasco, Frizza as well. I believe Burke Dag. A lot of these guys I've raced with before, but Dornelis always, he was a driver that I feared. I didn't really have to worry about him too much. I was, middle of the pack, but on the occasional race where I was unfortunately at the back and I saw him running up behind me, it wasn't a case of, oh, I should, maybe get ready to move. It was, no, I'm gonna move now. But he is, the way he sort of just plays this game and the way he meticulously changes his setups just little bit by little bit, it's kind of mind-blowing how well he does. Austin Carpenter will improve with a 54.65, but it will not be enough to overtake anybody. Porter's still about a 10th up the road and then some. Grant, I couldn't tell you if they've raced in any SRO races. I wouldn't be too surprised. Dornelis and Pierce have done that, but they are very, very skilled drivers. I haven't asked them personally, but I'm sure if you asked them, they would be like, oh yeah, of course I do. Or maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm making assumptions here. But we're still trudging through qualifying right now. Trudging, I say. Can't let my personal biases about these track come out. Portis here on an improvement, a little bit under or maybe over a 10th. Broadcaster controller's having a little bit of a hard time gauging it. Out of the final corner, he's ahead for just a moment. So he powers down the front straight, crosses the line, and will improve a 54.502. Not enough to take over Landry's position. That is 3/10 away from him. But improvements are improvements. So we look to the Brazilian, Renato Dornelis, on a bit of a run right now. As he heads into the final corner, if he can just nail this turn, he is going to have an excellent exit. As he heads onto the front straight, he is 2/10 up on himself. Will this be another driver in the 53s? Crosses the line. Yes, it is, and overtakes pole position from Flomger, a 53.84. Just a 10th and then some up the road. Impressive stuff from the Brazilian. Never doubted a moment in my mind. Carpenter getting ready to go around that final corner to complete another lap. He has improved by a good bit. This should be enough to overtake Portis' position, although Portis is on an improvement right now. Across the line, 8.83 goes. It's P6, a 54.35, and he's across the line just in time, actually, to get another lap in if he needs it. Pierce, Frizza, and Parity all in the pits. And Carpenter also going to just dive into the pits. He's done for qualifying. Brian Rasco about even with himself as he comes out of the final corner. P8 at the moment, a 52.60 or 52.26, but does not improve. He's qualifying done and dusted. Flomger, Pierce, Clifford, Carpenter, Portis, Rasco, Thompson, Frizza, Burke, Parody in the pits. Dornelis, Landry, Dag, and Raworth all staying out. One more lap, so we'll ride here with Landry. See if he can improve. He's about even with himself at the moment, but he is closing in on the last couple of corners, so he should be seeing if he's improved any bit by the end of it. But we take a moment. Welcome Pingu to the stream. Glad to have you. Hope you're having a good one wherever you may be in the world. Of course, so around the final corner, Landry goes. He's still even. And if he can improve, he's going to need a little more than a tenth to get around Clifford. And he will not. A 54.25. 15 thousandths behind his personal best. Dornelis into the final corner and into the pits. He is not improving that lap time. Unfortunately, Thomas Dag as well is 7 tenths down. And Raworth was improving, but then he went off. So unfortunately, his qualifying session does end. But ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be it for qualifying. Dornelis picking up pole position, a 53.84. Incredible time. And then Flomger with that 53.97. So these two are going to be the ones to watch, as they seem to have quite the gap already. Being in the 53s, not an easy task at all to ask for. But when you get it just right, my God, does it become amazing. So we'll take a look at the grid here. As these drivers, you see their cars hopping up and down, just trying to get those last setup changes squared away. But Dornelis again with another pole position. Can't say I am too surprised. Consistent driver week in and week out. And we'll have to see if he can hold on. So this first race, 20 minutes. Standard pub race lobby rule. And then after that, we do some reverse grid magic. Get ready for 40 minutes. And then, well, we've got another race to do after this. So we take a stroll here through the grid. It has been a day dominated by Audi. We saw it with EU. We've seen it with AP. The top cars looking like Audis, McLarens, Hondas, of course. Ferraris as well. So anything that's got some good top end and acceleration is going to be your best friend, especially on that Mistral straight. The last thing you want to give to a car behind like that is the slipstream. The Lamborghini, not too certain about. We didn't see it in the last race. The BMWs, they managed to hold their own, but they don't seem to have that high speed that we see of the Ferrari. We also saw the Bentleys, or a Bentley in EU, and it held up pretty well. Skyen did an amazing job using that big old boat to his advantage. But we get to the end of the grid here. Some Audis, some Ferraris, some BMWs, everything you could ever want. And these drivers are going to be getting ready for that 30-second countdown. Once that happens, you got to click drive. You're starting from the pit lane, and that's something nobody wants to do. So we should be racing here in just a minute. If we switch back, 44 seconds. This is going to be the first of 4 races this evening. First of 2 for Corkscrew Split. And then, of course, we'll be joined later on by Kevin Parody and Sam Raworth for the Druids Split. And then that'll cap off another great season of OOR action. Drivers hopping off the jacks. You can see it. 20 seconds to go. Click drive. Get the car started. And get ready. Dornelis, I believe, still up on his jacks, or maybe rocking a pretty high ride height. Or it could just be the camera angle. There it is. Popping down on the ground. He knows what's up. No safety car, of course. It's a small field. So Dornelis will act as a safety car. As he pulls away, everyone else will follow suit. Will be single file for a majority of this lap. And then as we get into Sector 3, we'll be 2x2 across the grid until that start-finish line. And at that point, it is pedal down, head down, get ready. But I just want to say, it's been an incredible season here for North America. A lot of amazing moments, a lot of close calls, a lot of high-stress situations, and these drivers coping brilliantly. highs and lows, heartbreaks and heartwarming moments. And of course, we hope the same for next season. We don't know what these drivers' plans are going into the break, but hope to see a lot of them back for season, well, it would be season 11 of the Sprint Series. I know for a fact that I'll be back in the commentary booth for at least North America, and if I'm in the booth for Europe as well, hey, so be it. It'll be interesting to see what these drivers are feeling. Especially, I know for some of them, that little month break in between feels like an eternity. For others, it couldn't be long enough. For me personally, I'm ready to just kind of have nice, chill Sundays again. Or, sorry, Thursdays. Well, as chill as they can be. I have class on Thursday, but you know what I mean. Not that I don't enjoy doing this, I absolutely do. It's a lot of fun. I'm very happy that I have this opportunity. So thank you to Bullock for being such a great guy. But we hope to see a lot of these names back next season, and a lot of new names as well if you're looking to bump yourself up from Rookie Series. The registrations for the SimRig Sprint Series are open on OctaneOnlineRacing.com.au. Registrations are going to be open for a while. There's going to be a month off, and then we'll start the new season mid-October with a seven-week calendar, almost in format, over the course of 3 months. Those are already up, so you can take a look at the tracks. That is obviously for North America, EU, and AP. And to answer your question, Grant, I'm a communications major. Although, I want to go into broadcast, sort of like what I'm doing right now. Could I afford a GT3 with it if all the cards are dealt to my hand? Maybe. I'll have to wait and see. I do know my dream car is a, was it 1999 McLaren F1? Put the Fina livery on that and I am set. I don't care if people don't like it. It's my car. But yeah, as we round the final corner, drivers getting ready for this first 20-minute race of the North American Corkscrew split. After this, it's going to be a 40-minute reverse grid race, and we'll see just who comes out on top as they cross under the lights. It's green, green, green. Dornelis and Flommer getting an amazing start. Carpenter as well already over the back of Clifford as we head down into turn 1. Rasco pulling alongside 3 abreast in the background. Portis having to get on the brakes early as we head down to turn 1. Not a lot of problems in the background as everyone manages to get through nicely. A little 2x2 action for everybody as we head on through. Dag trying to find a way around Rasco and doing a damn fine job of it. Clifford as well, giving up that inside line to Portis, who ducks down the inside, but he's going to also have the outside line as we head through this S's section. Dornelis already keeping that lead as we head onto the Mistral straight. Thomas Pierce up to second. He's improved very well as we head here to the slipstream zone. This is where we are going to see a lot of overtakes. A lot of them very slow and progressive, but happening nonetheless. Kenneth Portis here giving us a very good example, trying to use that speed and acceleration of the Honda down this back straight, and even using a bit of slipstream from Landry, who's unintentionally giving him that, so he's going to be able to pull alongside as we head down to the end of this back straight. The inside line belongs to Clifford. Portis having to back out, and actually he's going to compromise himself as Carpenter pulling on up. Is going to peek down the inside, but slots back into position. The door is open, but he does not want to take the chance. Rasco getting a bit of a tap onto Dag, giving him a bit of a bump, but we have Thomas Pierce actually spinning out in the middle of the, or not Thomas Pierce, excuse me, that's Flomger. We're going to see what happened. Roll that one back, so this is at the front of the pack. Now, did he get touched? Oh, he goes for a move down the inside of Pierce, and he just gets rear-ended by Landry. So Landry manages to get out of that, and then just a little smack there from Kevin Parody. So that is going to be looked at by the stewards. Dornelis has already been very happy with that and is starting to run away with it already. Thomas Pierce settling into second place. Clifford has benefited quite well. The Honda of Portis has lost some momentum and has given up a position to Landry Carpenter as well, making it to the other bread slice of this McLaren sandwich that Portis finds himself in between. Dag and Rasco, the two Audis, sticking a little close together, and then we've got Frizza, Thompson, and Burke making a little pack of their own, and then Raworth, Parity, and Flomger just sort of on their own. And as I say that, though, Flomger pulling up to Parity quite quickly, so this could be a potential overtake as we head onto the Mistral Straight. Michael Landry, 7/10 is the gap to Portis, although these two cars incredibly quick in a straight line. And you can see Portis, he does have the slipstream. He's getting ever so closer. Landry to the inside, trying to defend here as we head down 2x2 towards this straight. And Landry, unfortunately, just gonna have to slot in behind. 20-minute race, it doesn't feel like a long time. And it isn't a long time, but for some of these drivers, it's gonna feel like 20 hours. Leon Burke having to defend from Braden Thompson, who has Sam Raworth in tow. Timothy Flomger has gotten around Parity, and Parity does have some front-end damage from earlier, definitely affecting the performance of that BMW. Keep an eye on that. Kenneth Portis starting to feel the pressure here from Landry. Or actually, no, he's gotten around Landry. So he's gotten away from one McLaren, but he's got two of them in his rearview mirror instead of one as he had before. He's done a very solid job using that slipstream, using some of the cornering speed. Now, the one thing we saw in the EU race with a Russian driver by the name of Vinogradov is he was in the McLaren, but he was actually running a very downforce heavy setup, which did affect him on the straights. But out of the long corners at the end of the Mistral Straight and subsequently after those, it gained so much time just because of the amount of grip that was on that McLaren, which already has a lot of grip considering the field. But I'm wondering if Landry and Carpenter are running the same setup, or perhaps they're looking for more straight line speed, banking on just catching and overtaking and getting a gap on the Mistral Straight before they get to those corners. Thomas Dag, here we see in the background, P7 with Rasco in tow. So this is gonna cause a couple of issues for the 177 Audi driver in the same machine, but of course with the slipstream, he is going to be able to pull in a bit closer. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. That half-second gap is maintained. So down we go. You can see the brake markers for other racing series in the background. Thomas Dag does manage to stay ahead as we reach the end of the straight. Ooh, I think he might have maybe missed his turning point a little bit. Able to keep it together, though. Same with Portis, Landry, and Carpenter. Landry getting a little out of shape and manages to keep the McLaren going, although he has given up a position to Austin Carpenter, who will gladly take advantage of that. No problem there. Thomas Dag has unintentionally managed to bring Chris Frizza into the picture. Frizza running in P10 right now. The second highest Pro-Am driver, although Pro-Am bragging rights belonging to Jonathan Clifford, up in a very commanding P3 for this classification. On the front straight, Brian Rasco has not gotten the best exit. Frizza looked for a move to the outside, but just had to slot back in. Wasn't going to take his chances. He knows there's only 13, maybe 14 minutes to go. But there is still plenty of time to make a move. And of course, if you don't get it done in this race, you can get it done in the next one, as that'll be a 40-minute race. But things seem to have calmed down a good bit. But I'm sure drivers don't want to be sitting in their positions. They want to be gaining positions. And gaining right now is Landry as we get through. So we'll see the exit he gets here. And I don't think it's as good as Carpenter, but Carpenter misstepping a little bit. Able to maintain as they head on the Mistral Straight again. 7/10 is the gap that slipstream should be taking into effect, but it is just barely on enough. They must be running the same sort of setup, or maybe a slightly different setup. I would bet Landry maybe wishes he had a little less downforce, be able to take more effect of the slipstream and a little bit more straight line speed. But it's this third sector that really sort of sells you that high downforce setup with the wings and everything else. Just too much to not use. And he does catch up at the end of the straight. So we'll keep an eye on these two, as they should be doing battle. Sure enough, Leon Burke as well, as Thompson in his rear view. Thompson trying to keep up as much as he can, trying to stay within that 7/10, because he knows he's going to take advantage of that slipstream. Meanwhile, Burke has absolutely nothing up to Frizza. 2.5 seconds is the current gap, and he'll be unable to catch up. He'll be giving the slipstream. Carpenter doesn't have to worry about Landry going for a move. There's a slipstream on the front straight, but there's not enough room to fully take advantage of it as they head through the turns of Sector 1. Onto the straight, or excuse me, getting ready to pull up to the straight again. You can see Clifford there exiting shot along with Portis. And behind the two Audis of Dag and Rasco. So we got some manufacturer battles going on. It looks like Carpenter didn't get the best line through there, although able to keep his car pointed in the right direction. So right here with Landry, that slipstream is in effect, but you can see he's not getting as much as he would like. He is unfortunately running roughly the same setup. Side line for Carpenter. Trying to force Landry the long way around, who does just step back into line, thought about a move, but nothing came of it. As he continues his campaign to try to get around his fellow McLaren driver. It is not an easy task to do, especially when you're running the same setup. So these two really giving us a bit of a show right now. Leon Burke still with Thompson in his rear view, although last lap for Burke was a 56.07. Thompson was a 55.7, which is not what you want to see. If you're Leon Burke, you don't want the guy behind you driving faster than you or every single lap, because you know that gap's coming down. And at that point, it could be all over. Parity going into the pits for damage repair. Thomas Dag had a bit of a shaky exit of that final turn, pulled Rasco in a bit closer, but was able to keep his position as we cross the 10-minute mark of this race. Carpenter, last lap of 55.21. Landry's a 55.57. So there is some discrepancy here between these two drivers, despite being in the same machinery. It must be setup changes. Carpenter just trying to find some space here to Landry. Landry was trying to cut the corners as much as he dares. Thomas Dag and Brian Rasco as well. Two drivers also in the same vehicle, battling one another. And you can just see, even with the slipstream, these guys are just not moving. You can barely see the two McLarens up front. So actually right here with Landry, he does pull in a lot closer now. He had a very solid exit out of the corner and was able to stay pretty close to Carpenter and was able to use a little bit more of that slipstream. He is trying to just find some room where he can, following in the footsteps of the 833 car. The 88.3 car, rather. Not able to find a gap. It looked like there may have been a bit of an open door, but nothing more than smoke and mirrors. As these two continue on, perhaps maybe looking forward towards the second race this evening and saying, you know what, I may not get the best start here, but next race I can probably do a little bit better than you. Things to wait and see. Thomas Dag, ooh, looks like Rasco got the corner all sorts of wrong, as he now has a considerable gap to the Audi in front. Frizza maintaining roughly the same distance. And in the background you see Thompson and Flomger. Flomger trying to make up ground where he can, struggling right now. As you can see, that BMW is beat up a little bit too much, and is probably struggling to find some speed, maybe a little bit of grip doing what he can. Parity still in the pits with those damages. Carpenter again with Landry in tow. And we'll see how much of a tow Landry can get as we head down this back straight. It looks like a little bit more than he's used to. Carpenter extremely defensive as we head down into this corner. Side by side, he's going to force Landry the long way around. Landry more than willing to take that challenge. And a very clean, very solid overtake there from Landry. P6 is going to get gifted to him off of that. Incredible stuff. On the outside, it's very difficult to do, but knowing Landry had a bit of a slower line through the inside, was going to capitalize on that no matter what. And now we look back to Thomas Dagg and Brian Rasco to see who is the better of the two Audis. See if they can maybe swap some positions as the McLarens did, or if they just hold station and go from there. Looking at right now, it looks like my co-commentators, Raworth and Parity, will be doing some qualifying between themselves to see who's the fastest of the commentators. Of course, I would do it, but I'm just way too fast. I'm definitely not a midfield driver at all. Dornelis, we haven't seen him a little bit. He's been trying to pull away from Pierce, who's actually done a pretty good job of catching up. Last laps have been very, very close to each other. A couple of hundreds this way and that way. Last lap is Dornelis' winnings, as he does a 54.63 and Pierce is a 54.75. On the back straight again, Thomas Stagg half a second to Rasco, but I'm wondering how much of a slipstream he's going to get. It doesn't look like a lot. He may be inching a little bit closer, but it's really just not enough to make anything happen. As you can see it. Just nothing between them. If he's going to go for a move, he's got to be a lot closer. And in fact, he gets a slightly better line, ducks to the inside. He's going to send it down the inside. They're going to make contact. I don't know if he's going to hold on to that position. No, he did go all four wheels over the white line. If he held that position, that would have been perhaps a penalty from the stewards. But Rasco, a very respectful racer, he knows what he has to do, and that is to give the position back, especially with the contact and leaving the racing surface. He does not want to get dinged for that one. Jonathan Clifford has been having Portis creeping ever so closer to the rear bumper of that Lamborghini. A 54.85 for Clifford and a 54.56 for Portis, so slowly chipping away at that lead. Braden Thompson now has a very damaged Flomger behind him with that slipstream, but Flomger not going to opt for a move. Already been enough damage to that BMW. Might as well try to minimize it as best you can. Now here's the thing, with the reverse grid, Flomger would start up at the front with Braden Thompson in P2, so perhaps Flomger just sits here and says, alright, I'm going to be sitting at the front of the pack going into the next race. I might as well just stay here. You know, there's no point in overtaking. You know, it is only one position if he does overtake Thompson, but it's better to be up at the front and have that advantage than to have to work through somebody and then try to open up a gap when everybody else is going to be doing the same thing. Dornelis is 6/10 clear of Pierce. He's struggling to find time. Clifford as well having an issue with Portis slowly pulling himself in. Thomas Stagg as well. Brian Rasco hasn't really been able to do anything. Last lap for Dagg was a 56.29. Rasco's a 56.42. So Dagg a bit more consistent than his Audi counterpart. Braden Thompson finds himself again with Flomker in the rear view. And then Raworth and Parity quite a ways back. We should have just 2 more laps here. Dornelis has to hold on to gain this victory here in race number 1 at Paul Ricard. Although Pierce is definitely hunting him down. A 54.65 for the Brazilian and a 54.35 for Pierce. This is not what you want to see if you're Dornelis, because you know that he's going to be able to go for a move as you head onto this back straight with that slipstream. So here we go. It's a 6/10 gap, and we don't know how much the slipstream is going to take effect. Even in the same machinery, it actually hasn't. The gap's increased a little bit. It seems to hover around 7/10 or so. Ryan Rasco gonna be a little bit closer this time, so perhaps a little bit more slipstream being tossed his way. See if maybe he can make something work here. So he is getting a little bit closer, but again, it's still just not enough. Dag opting to stick with that inside line, defensive just in case. And they're both going to go back to the left side of the track, onto the racing line. Rasco, perhaps not expecting Dag to break that early. Thankfully not going into the back of him. Slightly surprising line there for Dag. Wasn't as far over to the left as he would have liked. Gonna take a little bit more break, just to make sure that he didn't cause any problems for himself. So Dornelis is going to lead us one more time around Paul Ricard for this first race. Another minute and 54 seconds to hold off Pierce. The last lap between them is only 17 thousandths of a second, of 54.78 for Dornelis, of 54.79 for Pierce. So these two getting very, very close together. And it appears as though Portis has gotten the job done on Clifford, picking up this podium position here. Landry and Carpenter, 7/10 between them. Dag with Rasco staying within those 3/10. Incredibly consistent from both of these drivers. And this is the battle for P7. Go either way, but it's Landry and Carpenter looking to round out that top 5. And then we see in the background here Bert Thompson and Flomger getting ready to go down this back straight together. It's a 7/10 gap for Dornelis. That slipstream does exist, but not really much Pierce can do. Perhaps Pierce is just going to stick behind and wait for a mistake to be made, and then go for a little something special into the final corner. But I wouldn't be too surprised if he just sticks back and says, you know what, it's not worth it, I'm just going to sit here and live. Timothy Flomger, even with the slipstream and that damage, is staying behind Thompson. Now again, if you're Flomger, this is going to give you pole position for the next race. So he looks down the inside, darts to the outside, and just goes wide into that very abrasive runoff area that Paul Ricard is so famous for. But around the final corner, Dornelis getting the better exit of the two in race 1. It's going to go Dornelis' way. Pierce joins him on the podium, and Thomas Pierce rounds out that top 3 in the Honda. Jonathan Clifford probably not looking for a P4, but it's still a top 5 finish, and Landry holding off Carpenter for P6. Thomas Dag, a bit of a move down the inside from Rasco. But Dag will come out on top in the battle of the Audis. Chris Frizza makes it a top 10 finish. Leon Burke as well. And then it's Braden Thompson and Timothy Flomger who is going to start on pole position for the next race. Sam Raworth, P13, so he is going to be able to do some qualifying. And Kevin Parity for Where Art Thou? He is quite a ways back. So we'll welcome him across the line here in just a little bit of time. But a very good race for 1 and 2, a couple position swaps here and there, but now we get ready for the second 40-minute race, and we will see who will come out on top, because that always causes a lot of chaos for these drivers. Across the line, Parity goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for some very high-octane second qualifying. So, of course, only 14 drivers. So, only 2 are going to be allowed out. That is Parity and Raworth. Both of whom just making some setup changes very, very quickly before heading out there. Kevin should be the first one out onto track. And, of course, he is not moving quite yet. Oh, there he is. His setup is complete. So now we wait and see what happens. So of these 2, I'm going to put my money on Sam. And Kevin, of course. Both of these guys co-commentators, but got to do some racing. So Sam also out of the pit lane, or getting out of the pit lane rather, and going to be starting his qualifying laps to see if he can start in front of his co-commentator. I'm sure we'll have some fighting words during the second half of this broadcast. But Kevin will set the bar. Sam will see if he can beat that. Everyone else, of course, sitting in the pit lane. They're going to wait. I wonder if maybe we'll have a shortened qualifying, because it's only these 2. But we'll have to wait and see. It's only 7 minutes of quali, so should not be too bad. Or maybe 8. Actually, it's 8, sorry. But Kevin will lead us through a lap here of Paul Ricard. Again, after this race, these 2 drivers are going to be joining me in the booth. Chit-chat about the race, and then chit-chat about another race. And then that will close out our Octane Online Racing North American Sprint Series. And we'll see well, who stays, who goes over the break. And then be back again in a month in October for the Simrig Sprint Series. Which will be very exciting to see how that all goes down. So Parity on a flying lap now. He's gotten himself sorted out. Raworth still making his way around. In fact, into the final corner he goes. Start his first flying lap. Maybe of many. But yes, Kevin will be setting the standard. Now, of these 2, whoever does not start in front of the other, I will be giving a hard time once they hop in the booth, unless they decide not to. Which in that case, I will still give them a hard time, but they will not be able to defend themselves. A very quiet qualifying here. Granted, this is a very good look as to what hot lapping is like, if you've ever wondered what that's like. You're sort of out doing your own thing. Nobody's around you. It's calm, but unfortunately you want a little bit of excitement. And they'll see the other drivers as they go by the pit lane, of course. But they'll want to see those cars out on track, and they will. I reckon they should do a drift competition. That could work. I don't know who would win that. I mean, if it was ice, Kevin would have an advantage because he's Canadian. And Raworth. Ooh, I don't know. So I know where Raworth's from, roughly. Wondering, I don't know. That might be close. It depends on where Kevin's at. But no, Kevin does set the standard with a 56.64. So Sam Raworth will have to beat that. As he's coming up to the final corner. Looks like he has a little bit of an excursion on track, so his lap time most likely deleted and not going to be representative of his overall pace. So he'll have a chance at another flying lap here. Kevin 2/10 up already on his personal best. So a 2:10.515, that confirms my suspicions that Sam left the racing surface a little bit and came back on with a deleted lap time in his hands. So I'll check back with Kevin. So 2/10, 3/10 now actually. So he's gotten a bit of a better run out of the turn. Heads around this very, very long right-hander. Seems to go on forever. So not only will this push his time even further ahead of Sam, it'll make things a little bit more difficult because there's only going to be enough time for one more lap for each of these drivers. Raworth just about a minute through his lap now. And Parody out of the final corner. He's half a second up, so this could be a very low 56 or maybe even a 55 as he crossed the line. So 56.107. One more shot for him. Sam Raworth really struggling right now. Currently 2 seconds off of his previous lap, which would only be a 2:08. I don't think that would be a lap that isn't beyond track limits. Maybe just outbraking himself into a corner. But not the best qualifying for him. Parody continues to improve. Just about 2/10 up. Sector 1 time. The entire lap actually goes to Kevin. So yeah, it seems as though Sam's had a little bit of an excursion somewhere in the previous lap and this lap as well. So he rounds the corner. He's at a 1:53 at the moment on exit. So we'll probably be looking at about a 2-minute time here. He crosses the line. It's a 2:77, but it does not count. So Sam really struggling with these track limits. Kevin, absolutely no problems at all. Now here's the thing. With the Super Sprint race format, with the second race, the game is going to be looking to Kevin's car to start. So, again, it'll be a delayed start, which may throw a couple of these drivers off because, again, it has been quite a long time since we've actually done a Super Sprint race. So Parody around the final corner. He had a bit of an improvement of a couple tenths, but he seems to have lost it in the final sectors. So he's going to come across the line and finish with a 187, or a 56.187, excuse me. And Sam Raworth just has to finish up this lap. It might not be a legal lap, but it could be enough to at least say that he got below a 2-minute time here. So he'll be starting at the back in 14th position, Kevin in 13th position. So it looks like, unless Sam somehow finds a boatload of time, it looks like I will be giving him some flack for his Q2 quality. A nice little drift there around the final corner, and he's just going to weave side to side. And it will be below a 50, or below a 2-minute with a 58.95. See, puts her in the wall, off of one, into the other. And that hood popped up so the engineers can take a look under the hood and see what is going on while we are on the grid. So one last time for these drivers on this grid making changes to the setup. So it is Parody in front of Raworth here up at the front. But of course, it's not going to matter because everyone else is going to get called through. Good evening to you too, Keith. Glad to have you. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully you're ready for race number 2 of the Corkscrew split. Before we hop on over to Druids, of course, I will be giving Sam Raworth a lot of trouble for his qualifying performance. I will give Kevin all of the necessary praise of being such a good sim racer and being so good at what he does. But so what's going to happen is these drivers are going to get called up one by one. And at that point, the race, or once they're all called up one by one in reverse grid order, of course, then Kevin and Sam will be allowed to round out the rest of the field. And from there, we're going to get racing. Now, keep in mind, the driver who was in 12th was Flomger, so he'll start on pole position once the reverse grid is sorted, and we'll see how well these guys can get a straight line going for the start. EU did a very good job. There are a couple people a little off to the side, but nothing too crazy, nothing much to worry about. So we look back a minute and 14. The last race start these guys are going to have for a month, at least in the OOR. Setups being finalized. Fuel loads being adjusted accordingly for 40 minutes of racing instead of just 20. Ben Keogh, welcome to the stream. Good side search, you're solving your part of the problem. Hey, you know, you can have a good race with the low car count. EU definitely showed us that in the second race of the evening or day, depending on where you were in the world. Because you have all those slower drivers these fast guys have to pick their way through. So as we finish the countdown, everybody's off the jacks, thankfully. So Flomger will be starting on pole. Behind him will be Braden Thompson. So this is a very interesting dynamic. Flomger, very solid qualifying last time around here, as he's already peeling away. And it looks like we're not going to get a straight line because Flomger parking it up on the curb. However, or on the turn rather. However, we do see drivers starting to line up. And, you know, if you took the turn away, it'd probably be a very straight line. Probably getting a nice little curve here. This is the reverse grid race 2. Flomger on pole. Falcon Backerton, welcome back, my man. So everybody's pulled up. Everybody's ready to go. And then, of course, we have Sam Raworth and Kevin Parody running up the grid for that second qualifying session. But yeah, Flomger did a very good job in that first race. Unfortunately, very early on, found himself in a little bit of trouble and was turned around and had to settle in to 12th position. He could have gone for a move on Braden Thompson and made it P11, but was looking forward towards the second race and says, you know what, I'll just stay P12 so I can have a better chance at getting out of Dodge quickly and seeing if I can hold these guys off long enough to win. But 40 minutes, definitely going to be a bit of a challenge for some of these drivers. Obviously they're used to doing an hour in one go, but doing 20 and then 40, a little bit of a challenge. So it's Flomger from Thompson, Burke, Frissa, Rasco, Dag, Carpenter, Landry, Clifford, Portis, Pierce, Dornelis, your top 12. And then Parody and Raworth. The only two drivers that did not make it into the top 12. A little bit of weaving going on. Drivers getting some heat in those tires. Some doing their best Kimi Räikkönen impression and just driving in a straight line. They know what they're doing. But it'll be interesting to see how things turn out. trying to pick through everybody, especially with, you see Dornelis down in P12. He has a lot of work to do to get back up front. I can't say I'd be too surprised if he managed to pull it off, but it is quite the mountain to climb. So drivers should be lining up here, shooting by twos. If not, then rather shortly, but there it is, yep. So drivers being ordered 2 by 2 until the green flag. Again, keep in mind, the game is going to be looking to parity to start this race, so we'll be a little bit further down that front straight than we're normally used to, which does change. For a lot of these drivers, it does change their brake points, but for some, it's about the same. So around the final corner we go. It's Flomger on pole with the reverse grid from Thompson, Burke, Frizza, Rasco, Dag, Carpenter, Landry, Clifford, Portis, Pearson, rounding out with Dornelis in the top 10, and then Parity and Raworth. So as we cross the line here, for the last time for Corkscrew split, it's going to be green, green, green. It's an excellent getaway from Flomger, and Thompson already getting hounded as Burke gets a move done in a round. Same with Rasco, and Dag just swallowing up the Ferrari of Frizza. There's a little bit of contact in the background, and off to this nether realm goes Landry, getting absolutely sent away from everybody else. It was the contact with Frizza that sent him way, way out there. But Flomger already starting to open up a gap. Braden Thompson has what appears to be a mad crowd behind him, all vying for that P3. A lot of incredibly fast drivers. As Flomger will begin the run down the Mistral straight. In tow is Brian Rasco, and then there's a nice big gap down to Thompson, who does have a sizable gap to Burke, who's just outside that slipstream range. Burke and Carpenter about half a second. Here we go. Thomas Dag, Jonathan Clifford picking to the inside line with that slipstream. But the question is, how much is going to pull up? And is Dornelis actually going to be able to benefit from this as well? He is very, very close. Clifford gathering his options and deciding to stick to that inside line. He sees the run Dornelis has down this back straight and just has to stick to that inside line, almost going into the rear right corner panel. Oh, Dag ahead. Dag with that defensive line here. But that is going to leave Clifford a chance to overtake. They make contact, and that's actually going to be Thompson off the road, just up ahead, and 177 of Dag just getting swallowed up by the pack. So Braden Thompson must have had a little bit of a misstep and is just losing positions at this point and falling way down the grid, down into P6 from P2. And right behind him, of course, is going to be Leon Burke. Who else would it be? Or sorry, not Leon Burke. I'm looking at the wrong guy. Can't be Dornelis, can it? There's no way that's Dornelis. That's actually Dornelis. From P12 to P7, and we haven't even gotten through the first lap. You know what? I don't even know if I'm doubting his ability to get first place now. Swings it to the outs, or to the inside rather. He's alongside. Thompson should know he's there. And down he goes. Ooh, almost in the back. Thomas Pierce just running into the BMW. Thompson not getting the best exit. Got a little squirrely on exit, and Pierce is going to take advantage of that fully. Dag as well going to just force the issue. Oh, he's getting bumped. Braden Thompson, a little bit of bumper cars. Out wide goes Dag. Not too happy about that. Frizza and Portis also pulling up to this battle. You can see this pack forming. This is 6 cars here, all vying for a piece of this P8. As we head onto the back straight, is Portis getting an incredible exit. We're going 3 abreast here down the back straight. Frizza and Parity and Landry, all of them in the picture. Portis running away from these guys. Frizza using the slipstream from the Audi of Pierce. 3 wide. Here we go into the towards the end of this back straight. There's the corner. Landry also making it 3 wide for just a moment. Braden Thompson not in the best spot for Landry to take advantage of. Frizza almost getting a little too uncomfortable with the BMW down the inside. It's going to be Dag here, who thinks about a move, but just can't get it done. And he actually does. Same with Landry. So Thompson just falling down the order. Parity also going to try to take advantage of this. So you see Raworth as well, trying to just find anything he can. We hop back up front for a moment. Austin Carpenter with Clifford behind him. Same with the Audi of Pierce. Dornelis is actually up into P4. So Dornelis making very short work of this field. 2 laps in already, knocking on the door of a podium, but he's got Leon Burke, Brian Rasco, and Timothy Flomger to get through. Flomger already opening up a huge gap. Audi running 2, 3, and 4. But what a start we've had to this race. A couple of excursions, as we saw with Landry being one of them, but he's recovered quite nicely. Clifford backing off of Carpenter rather early, and Pierce is going to catch right up to that. So perhaps not the best move. Landry into the back there of Dag. Dag sent spinning, and Landry pulling way off to the side. He's letting everybody through. He knows what he did was wrong, and hopefully going to give the position back to Thomas Dag. And it looks like he is. Very good sportsmanship, but of course the stewards are going to be looking at that, shaking their heads and maybe dishing out some punishment. Right now, Leon Burke giving the slipstream to Ronaldo Dornelis, who is pulling along quite nicely here. As just up ahead, or sorry, behind, it's Clifford and Carpenter as well. Leon Burke is unfortunately going to be passed by Dornelis, who finds himself already onto the podium. Wide goes Clifford, and that is going to give Carpenter a chance to move down the inside, take advantage of that, but overcooks it a little bit into the corner. Clifford fighting back. Pierce as well, very much in the picture. But Carpenter managing to hold on to P5. Dornelis, car number 3, is in position number 3, and just up ahead is Brian Rasco. Probably thinking, oh, I've got a very sizable gap down to Dornelis. I've got nothing to worry about, but you don't know what you're up against. He will swallow you whole, spit you out, stomp you into the dirt, leave you in the dust, as he has one more person to get through at that point. That's Flomger, who has just run away with this. Jonathan Clifford with Pierce behind that Audi, very quick in a straight line, but not quick enough to close the gap up and overtake for P6, as he is just holding position. It's actually Clifford who manages to catch up to Carpenter a little bit. So we head through here, and right there in front is Leon Burke, the man who was just passed not too long ago. Over the bumps is going to be Pierce, who unintentionally takes out Clifford. Everybody taking evasive action to avoid the stranded Lamborghini. This is not what you wanted if you're Clifford. You were running so well up in P6, and now, unfortunately, you are relegated to last place. Not what you want to do, not the way you want to end your season. There's still 33 minutes to go. Thomas Pierce giving Portis a bit of a slipstream as we go onto this Mistral Straight again. Not too much speed to make a move. Portis just going to back out from that one. Not going to take his chances quite yet. Up ahead, Carpenter as well, trying to close up this gap to Burke. A slightly different line should see him get a little bit more exit speed. So we get to those inside lines, and you can see just a slightly wider angle for the McLaren. Thought about a bit of a switcheroo, but Burke has that covered off, no problem from him. Carpenter, though, remaining in P5 for right now, and behind him, Thomas Pierce leading Portis across the line. Frizza sort of just on his own right now, and behind that is Braden Thompson, who's had some positions given to him through errors that, well, he just witnessed. Michael Landry going side by side with Raworth down into turn 1, gets the overtake done well before the corner. That is P11 for Landry after a pretty disastrous start. Is starting to climb back up, and behind them, Clifford overtaking Dag. So Dag in a similar position, trying to recover positions where he can. Look at this. already Dornelis is on the back of Brian Rasco. That just goes to show you how quick this guy is. Rasco, a bit of weaving, a left then a right. Don't know. That shouldn't be too much of an issue for the stewards. But Dornelis pulling alongside and getting ahead. Rasco slotting back in for P3. Slipstream is there, but not really going to be enough. So all Dornelis has to do is catch up to this man, Timothy Flomger. You can actually see the two Audis in the background. Entering and exiting shot. But a long way off for Dornelis. Leon Burke and Austin Carpenter, who went door to door there at the end of the Mistral Straight, managed to keep it clean and keep it going in the right direction. Jonathan Clifford starting to pull away from Dag, so Landry has a 10-second penalty. Dornelis, surprisingly, with a 5-second penalty. So not only is he going to have to pull away from Rasco, he's going to have to get around Flomger and then gain 5 seconds somehow, some way. We have a yellow flag out on track. That is the 833 of Carpenter. We're going to roll this one back, see what happens. So he's behind Leon Burke, and is this just a move that wasn't going to happen? Yeah, he just goes to the inside and a slight tap, completely self-inflicted. Carpenter is unfortunately parked up on the side of the road, as it seems like the entire OR just blowing by him, and Carpenter finds himself in last. Thomas Dag got around Raworth while we were watching the replay. Ooh, Raworth very late on the brakes, almost running into the back there of the Audi. And Burke has Pierce. So it seems to be the Audi party here in France for the Corkscrew split on the back straight. Burke not getting the best exit. Or sorry, it was Pierce actually. Sorry, that's not getting that best line onto the straight. The slipstream is there. He's inching his way closer, and he is going to go for that inside line. Now the question is he gonna stick it there, or is he gonna back out? So we head down into the corner, and it is Pierce's position, free for the taking. Burke gonna just hop back into P5 for right now. So he knows as long as he can keep up, he's gonna be able to get that position back in due time. But for now, he's gonna have to wait. Michael Landry doing a pretty good job of recovering up to P10 or P9, even with that 10-second penalty. He's got to get away from Parody and a few others if he wants to remain in the top 10 by the end of this race. Right now, he's looking at a P11 finish as a Raworth, or sorry, maybe even a P13, as Carpenter is quite a ways back. But we'll see what things look like at the end of the race. Leon Burke, Portis in his rear view, a lot closer than he was before. So he knows that once that back straight comes up, it is most likely going to be a losing battle. The race has settled down a good bit. After some opening lap chaos, these drivers have settled in. They know they've got a lot more time this go around than they did previously. Just under 30 minutes to go here. But Portis is not going to wait. He is going to try to get this drive done as soon as he can. You can see just how close Portis is with that slipstream and just the top end of the NSX. Again, this is a track that completely favors this car. Pretty much everything inside of the top 10 is favored here. Actually, I would just say every single car, barring the BMWs to some extent, are absolutely favored by this French circuit. Surprised Portis didn't go for a move, though. Perhaps not feeling too confident in the speed he was getting and how much time was left to get to the end of that front straight. Kevin Parody with an angry-looking Lamborghini all over his rear-view mirror. It's Clifford trying to claw back some positions after a spin earlier on. Kevin, that inside line, trying to be as defensive as he can. A little slide there for Clifford, who manages to keep it together. Both of these drivers looking at a top 10 finish. But of course, you want to get as many as you can. So onto the front straight. I don't think Parity got the best exit. Although the BMW sort of proving me wrong. As we head on to lap 7 for these two. A slipstream for Clifford, pulls to the inside. And is he going to go for movies a bit later on the brakes? Down into turn 1 he goes. Can Clifford keep it pinned? Yes, he can. Very good, solid overtake there for the Lamborghini driver. So that'll be the P10 handed over. And now he's got to get it around Landry, although he could just keep it pinned there. And he'll gain that P9 without really putting up much effort. Portis pulling away from Burke. Burke was all over him. Or no, sorry. No, Portis got around Burke. So now Portis up ahead. We do see Pierce and Rasco. Rasco not getting that better line. He had a snap of oversteer, but caught it perfectly. Kept his Audi from seeing his best friend Barry R. So all that work Rasco did to get back, or to get right up behind Pierce, has been squandered. We look back, Braden Thompson now, Michael Landry in suit. Even if that overtake is done, Landry still has 10 seconds of time to get away from Thompson to avoid losing this position as we go door to door here down the front straight. And it's just going to be Landry slotting back in, perhaps waiting till the Mistral straight to do something rather than do it now. Although, knowing the skill discrepancy of these two drivers, I would not be surprised if they both went for it. Renato Dornelis finding himself 7 seconds back. Flommer just in his own little world right now. And then it's going to be almost 7 seconds back to Pierce. So if Dornelis can keep the pace up, he is going to be able to hold on to this P2. Despite having a penalty. On the back straight, Landry trying to avoid contact. Now you have to keep in mind, Landry most likely is running a very high downforce setup with this McLaren. You can see even with that slipstream, I mean, he's getting absolutely nothing. So he's going to be banking for these long right-hand corners at the end of the backstretch to gain all the time he needs. And we'll see if he can get it done. So as we get towards the end, a slight lift, a little brake tap, and a downshift. It's going to bring these guys around this corner. You can see Landry, yeah, definitely with a setup that favors these corners a bit more to gain some pace. So for right now, Braden Thompson managing to hold on. Landry thinking about a move around the outside. Realizes that's probably not the best idea, and just sticking behind this BMW. You can see just how close he is, though. To the tail end, Braden Thompson not getting the brake marker quite right. And we see Landry a little switcheroo here as he gets a much better exit and he puts the throttle down. And across the front end he goes of Thompson up into P8. And now he's got to get a 10-second gap down to Thompson to avoid losing this P8. And that is a lot to ask for. 22 minutes left on the clock. And Brian Rasco starting to become a bit of food for Portis. Again, these two cars here are very powerful in a straight line, but with that slipstream, Portis will be benefiting quite a lot from it. So as we head up the Mistral Straight once more. You can see Portis, just how much that slipstream means to him. You can see just how much he's gaining the inside line for Rasco, but the question is it really worth it as Portis gets the move done before the end of the Mistral Straight? And Brian Rasco, fortunately, having to just slot back into P5 as both of them run rather wide. Oh, the little placards. We look back, Kevin Parody and Thomas Dagg. Dagg had found himself facing a bit of an unproductive direction, but is doing a very productive thing, and that is overtaking for P11. And in the background, Sam Raworth ahead of Austin Carpenter. Carpenter, again, a lot of work he's got to do just to gain at least one position back by the end of this. So Kenneth Portis did get that move done for P4, and he's going to be looking to open up that gap as this race carries on as we head just about to halftime. So things definitely have calmed down. These drivers just getting into that rhythm. For a lot of these guys, it's going to be just getting these laps banged out and finishing off your season. For a couple others like Braden Thompson, the battles still rage on. Jonathan Clifford, another driver who we saw up front get demoted all the way down the field. And trying to make up positions. Same with Carpenter and Dagg as well. So a lot of these front runners just getting caught up in things they ideally shouldn't be. Still Flomger up front. Flomger actually with fastest lap, a 54.3. It's very, very strong time. Dornell's best is only a 54.5, so 2/10 between them, but I wonder if maybe that's because of Renato getting caught up with a few people, and you can actually see just how massive this gap is down to Pierce. 6.8 seconds. So as long as he keeps it together, he's got nothing to worry about. Sam Raworth getting passed by Carpenter. So Carpenter being able to get up the grid, albeit one position, but at the very least for him, it is not going to be last. Braden Thompson still with Jonathan Clifford behind him. Michael Landry struggling to get away from these two drivers, perhaps banking on Thompson holding up Clifford long enough to open up a 10-second gap. But Clifford is going to have slipstream. I think the front end of that the Lamborghini is a little bent out of shape. Does Clifford go for a move down the inside? Breaks at about the same time. He peaked on the inside line. Thompson holding strong, though, not getting phased by that. And will continue his charge towards the end of the race. You can see Dagg and Parody in the background, and just for a moment, the pink dot of Carpenter's McLaren. So we head around again to the Mistral Straight. It seems like the more I say it, the less it actually sounds like a phrase, and more just something you made up. But Clifford, with that slipstream, not getting as much of a toe as he would have liked. He's half a second back, but with that damage, he's not getting as much time as he would have liked. And just now, towards the end of the straight, he's getting that slipstream down into the corner. He has that inside line. Is Thompson going to defend it? No, he is just going to back out of it and give that position over. I think he knows that it's maybe better for him to give Clifford that position than to fight it. Although, if you're Michael Landry, that's a bit of a problem, because you know how good Clifford is, and you know he's going to be eyeing up that P8. He knows he doesn't have to do anything for it. As long as he stays within that 10-second window, he'll be gifted a position free of charge. But things have calmed down significantly. Only thing really is Leon Burke and Chris Frizza, but that's not really much of a battle. More just intensity by association. Jonathan Clifford already starting to get away from Braden Thompson as they cross the line. 1.5 seconds is the gap already. What a season it's been for all of these drivers, week in and week out, showing up and showing out, giving us their best performances, and especially to those that have maybe had some bad luck in their races. Clifford, one of them, Carpenter, Dag as well, and Landry, despite the shortcomings that they experienced, they had no problem just getting back out there and getting the race over and done with. But again, a lot of these guys, hope to see them back next season. I believe Sam is, I think when we talked about it last race, I believe he said he was sticking around in the OOR. I don't remember. Oh, we've got Braden Thompson. Afternoon, not what he wanted, and he finds himself going the wrong way real fast. So out of the corner, out of the Mistral Straight, just gets on that curb a little too much and slams that wall. That is always the one thing that I fear coming out of the Mistral Straight onto that corner. You bounce over those curbs so much. Well, there's a grade A lesson as to what exactly those curbs can do. So what I want to see, oh yeah, you can see steering damage. He's got that wheel to the left to try to keep the thing going right, even with the left-hand turns all the way. That BMW just does not want to move. So now into the hairpin, it's going to be really tricky. Low for Braden Thompson. It is no issue at all. And into the pit lane he goes. Get some damage repaired. Hopefully got the that pit limiter on, because that pit lane line sneaks right up on you. So for Braden Thompson, this may be the season ending note for him. Not the way he would want to cap things off, but unfortunately that's just sort of how it is. So he parks up, and the pit crew gonna do their thing and get that car repaired, and hopefully back out on track with, well, there should be plenty of time, 13.5 to go, but definitely a very heartbreaking way for Thompson to end the season. Chris Frizza with Landry behind, so Landry has been opening up a gap to Clifford as best he can, and is already catching up to these other drivers. You know, it makes you wonder, if these guys hadn't gotten spun out at the start, how high up would they be at this point in the race? Would they be vying for a top 5, maybe even a podium position? We check back with Timothy Flomger, just doing hashtag Flomger things. Dornelis is right there in the background. Last lap for Flomger, a 55.5. Dornelis with a 55.0. So he could get around Flomger, but the problem is, if he's doing half a second a lap quicker, and he's only, we'll see what the numbering is, it is 6 seconds. So he's going to need quite a few laps to catch up to Flomger, and then even more just to open up that gap that's big enough for a 5-second time penalty to inhabit without being too much of a problem. So I think it's safe to say, barring some, we'll say, unforeseen event for Flomger, this could be a final win for Flomger on the season. A nice way to end the book, end the chapter, if you will. Thompson already out of the pit, so the damage being repaired quite nicely. And I don't think that, yeah, that BMW fixed right up rather quickly. Maybe my view of time is being skewed. But a lot of these drivers, it'll be interesting to see what happens come next season. Again, if you've done your stint in the rookies and you're feeling ready and you feel like you want to take the next step, registrations are open for the SimRigs Sprint Series starting in October. So a month off for our stewarding team and our race directors and everyone that's involved with the Sprint Series to catch a breather and sort of just take a little mini vacation. And then they'll come back and look at everything, look at these drivers, and see who is worthy of being promoted up into Sprint and who maybe might need another season in rookies, which there's no shame in that. There are plenty of people who fill out an application for the Sprint Series and don't get in. That's totally fine. No shame in that. I know when I did it, we had, I believe, over 300 applicants. I don't know how many made it in exactly, but I was one of the lucky few. But if you're looking to upgrade yourself, registration's open. And you'll have a little over a month to get things sorted out. Get familiar with your car, get familiar with your tracks, get familiar with those setups too. Gonna be crucial. Follow the same 7-week format as we have right now, and I believe it will follow the same race format schedule, so super sprint and then a bunch of sprints in between with an extended format in the middle, and then rounding it off again with a couple of sprints and super sprints. I don't believe, I think the only track from this season that I remember off the top of my head that's making a comeback is going to be Coda. Outside of that, I believe Brands Hatch is making a comeback, which I'm very happy to hear because that is an amazing track. Very, very good racing surface. And then I believe Kyalami as well. I think Nürburgring is on the schedule, Spa is on the schedule, Monza, and there's probably a couple of others I'm missing. But that'll be a story for another time. Right now we look to 11th place, Kevin Parody with a very bright pink McLaren right behind him. Slightly different lines, a wider line for Carpenter. Excuse me, who's a seasoned veteran here, looking to get around this pesky little BMW. Again, probably running that high downforce setup. So maybe on this third sector, gaining more time than Parody is able to. And Parody actually leaving the door open on the inside as they go door to door here into the final turn. Kevin covering off the inside perfectly, but that's completely compromised his exit. And Carpenter saying thank you very much will bump himself up into P11. Parody down into P12. And Thompson picking up a drive-through for track limits. A race that's gone from bad to worse for the number 14 driver. In position 14, you know, I will say he is consistently at the same position as his number. Even when we had bigger grids, he was still P14. So, a consistent driver, but still a very unfortunate end to the season. Just salt in the wound already. Leon Burke, point of interest for Chris Frezza. You can see Leon Burke just pulling to the inside to break that slipstream before slotting back in on that racing line. Does not want to give Frezza a chance to catch up at all. Although Frezza could get this move done. I'm just trying to think where these two are faster. Ooh, Frezza over a very inside line on that curb. Thankfully able to keep that Ferrari pointed in the right direction. Landry as well starting to join the party here. Landry very late on the brakes and is going to make contact with Frezza. Frezza getting turned sideways. And you can see Landry just up the road. Frezza quite far away from everybody. A very lengthy gap down to Jonathan, Clifford, and Landry. My friend, you've already got 10 seconds added on. You don't need another 10. Although you could argue this is the final race of the season. Why should it matter? But that isn't an excuse to go for some questionable moves. Dag into the pit, surprisingly. This could possibly be for fuel. We saw it in EU, and it does happen. Braden Thompson passing up his drive-through penalty. If he doesn't serve it, he will get 40 seconds added on. Although he probably realizes he's already at the back. It doesn't really matter for him. But one thing to note with these penalties, one thing we introduced this season was a bit of a driver license system where you get points added for penalties, whether that be collisions or track limits or whatever the case may be. Pit lane speeding. These drivers are more than aware of what is going on and what is expected of them. Thankfully, we've been very, very good in keeping these drivers in check. No severe punishments, thankfully. These drivers conducting themselves in a very respectful manner. Thomas Dag out of the pits, finally topped up on his fuel. Leon Burke starting to feel the heat from Landry. Now, if Landry goes for a move, he's going to have to make it a bit of a calculated one. He does not want to get even more penalty time added on as he looks down the inside and gets the job done. Burke going to surrender that position, but maybe a bit of a switcheroo here as Leon Burke, clipping that apex perfectly, gets the drive out of the corner. Landry, 15 seconds added on to his name. Leon Burke with the slipstream. Down the front straight we go, down to turn 1. It's going to be side by side. Leon Burke with that outside line. He's going to be very, very careful. Landry later on the brakes, down to turn 1, holds that position. But 15 seconds, it's not going to matter if he crosses the line in front of Burke. He could even lose some time down to Frizza and quite possibly Clifford even. If these gaps stay the way they are, it is going to be quite the tale to tell. Once everything is said and done, Flomger 8 seconds clear of Dornelis. Or sorry, it's 5 seconds. I can never tell which one's right, if it's the one in game or if it's broadcast controller. But Dornelis has done a very, very good job of catching up after starting in P12, of course, with that reverse grid, and even picking up 5 seconds of penalty time. And then getting away from Pierce. Incredible stuff. Braden Thompson into the pit lane, possibly for fuel. So Landry and Burke going to be giving us a bit of a show here to close things out. A little over 3.5 to go. We should be looking at a couple of more laps as Timothy Flomger going to be crossing the line just about now. So we should have 2 more laps after this, and then it'll be on to final, unless my math is incorrect, which, of course, being a communications major, is very likely. Excuse me. Guess we're not quite known for our mathematics. Braden Thompson's still parked up. It can't be for fuel and tires, can it? That would be not very good. Unless last I checked, I don't think fueling took too long, unless it got changed recently. Then again, I don't really have enough race time to actually check to see how long the fuel filling takes. Jonathan Clifford here with Austin Carpenter. The battle for P9. Carpenter with the slipstream and a better drive out of the corner. Gets that overtake done way before turn number 1. Clifford down into P10. Still a top 10 finish for him. But Carpenter is very, very happy to take that position. And just behind them, of course, Mr. Kevin Parody. And then Sam Raworth, Thomas Dag, quite a ways down. Braden Thompson still in the pits. So I'm wondering if maybe he's having some mechanical issues. Which obviously never a good thing, regardless of the game you're playing. You never want your equipment to fail you. Whether it's a racing game, a fighting game, an FPS, RTS, sports game, anything. Even Uno. Even if you have the oldest Xbox known to man. You never want your equipment to fail, especially not during Uno. But the final lap coming through, Flomger has taken complete advantage of the reverse grid and has driven away from the competition. Renato Dornelis, I can't say I'm too surprised, to be honest. I mean, this is the man who completely dominates every single season, it seems like, minus this one because he's had some competition and some less than stellar finishes. But what a season it's been for Corkscrew. And this reverse grid corkscrewing things up for a few of these drivers, but still very, very entertaining to watch. Braden Thompson, I think his day may be done and dusted. A terrible end to the season for the newest member here in Sprint Series. Out of the Mistral straight, head on into the wall, then picking up a drive-through for the track limits, which at this track is very, very easy to do, admittedly. It's someone commented earlier in the chat that not getting a drive-through penalty is a win in and of itself here at Paul Ricard. Sort of the European coda, if you will. But Flomger has done an amazing job taking advantage of this reverse grid. You see Dornelis in the background, but there's really nothing he can do. Time expires. Timothy Flomger, a driver who in race 1 did not get the best finish, had some unfortunate contact and dropped way back, managed to get into P12, so he was going to be on pole for the reverse grid, but Flomger going to cap off Season 10 with a win. Behind him, Renato Dornelis, a P2. Even with that 5-second penalty, it's not going to matter as Thomas Pierce crosses the line 6.4 seconds back to round out that top 10. It is Germany, or top 3 rather. It is a German podium. Kenneth Portis is going to break up the 1, 2, 3, 4 for Germany by putting his Japanese manufactured Honda into P4, and Brian Rasco in P5. Michael Landry, what a day he's had. Fortunately, 15 seconds is going to see Leon Burke crossing the line, going to take over that P6. Chris Frizza will get promoted as well up into P7. An excellent season for him. Austin Carpenter might also be able to take advantage of this. Out of the final corner he goes, although I don't think he's close enough, so this could be the P9. And Kevin Parody, our boy, our co-commentator, makes it into the top 10 in the final race of his season. Jonathan Clifford, try as he might, was not able to recover as quickly as he would have liked, and has to unfortunately settle for P11 here at Paul Ricard. Sam Raworth making it P12, and Thomas Stagg, an afternoon or an evening he would love to forget, but not as poorly as Braden Thompson has had. What a season for Corkscrew. So it looks like Thomas Stagg, one final send into the barrier, absolutely just murders that cone. Oh my god. It was a very aggressive send. So now the game, of course, thinks that Braden Thompson's still out there on track, which technically speaking he is. So the game will not be moving things forward quite yet. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Corkscrew split over, under, and out. As we look at the final standings for the race, it's Renato Dornelis, P1, Pierce P2, Portis P3. For the Pro-Am drivers, it is going to be Clifford, Frizza, and Burke. Amateur class, Thompson bragging rights in race 1, Raworth and Parody to round that out. Race number 2 overall, Flomger, and then Dornelis, who started in P12 all the way up into P2. Flomger, of course, on pole, and then it's Pierce in P3. Even with the 5-second penalty, Dornelis was able to open up a gap large enough So that way it had absolutely zero bearing on his final standings. For the Pro-Ams, Burke taking home the bragging rights for the black and white labels. And then Frizza and Clifford. And then for the amateurs, Kevin Parody does improve from last race as he takes P1 in the amateur class. Sam Raworth P2 and Braden Thompson, a race he would love to forget, unfortunately in P3. But now we must hop servers and get ready for this Druids split. And I'm going to work some editing magic, so if you pay attention to that upper right corner where it tells you the round, you see it says Corkscrew ready. Watch this. Bada bing, bada boom. It says Druids, we out here, we in there. And I am a trusted member of the OOR. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Corkscrew. Druids, here we go. So we're going to get into there just at the start of qualifying.
Green light, go, go, go.
Oh, qualifying actually ending. So we got to take a quick peek at this. So this is actually very interesting. I'm going to hit drive just so that way I can get what I need, which is the action shots. And of course, broadcast controller not wanting to properly connect TYVM. Lovely program. That's the one thing that annoys me about it. But it's no big deal, really. So on pole, I mean, it's backward in. Are you really surprised it's going to be backward in? No, you're not. Because it's backward in, darn it. So backward in a 53.5. Then it's Davis, a 54.29. Briscoe, 54.4. Louis, a 54.9. Brooke, a 55.1. A 55.5 for Steele, and a 55.6 for Scaptura. Williams, a 55.7. And then Lutkis, 56.0. Chris Stevens, 56.2. 56.3 for Specht. 53 or 56.56 for Duarte. Graham, a 56.65 in the safety car. Obviously on pole because I said so. But now we get ready for Druid split to round us out. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the booth, Mr. Sam Raworth. Sam, what happened? Oh, he is in the background. He is joining us from the Aether. Must have taken a minute to get something to drink, I would assume. So we take a quick look through the field. Dave Hasser joining us last second. Classic Dave move. We look to our safety car driver, bumping with some tunes. But yeah, pretty good qualifying that we just barely missed out on. Very unfortunate. But I mean, it's Vulcan Packard and on pole position. Can you really be surprised? No, you can't. And actually, while we're here, why don't we take a peek at all the liveries? Because it is ugly livery night. Safety car doesn't count though. Safety car beautiful. So let's see if we can get some decent shots here. We'll have to look through. So Backerton rocking the VC, or the VSRC that he always does. Steve Davis with a very questionable livery choice. Can't really see it, so I'll have to wait till everybody gets out and on track. And then Briscoe, his fugly friend. Great name. Michael Louis. Tim Brook, offensive to the eye. I can't wait to see it. John Steele, rescue a dog. I can agree with that. Skeptura probably with the same livery. Same with Williams. And Lutkis as well. Still racing for short-term memory racing. I forget, what was the team name? Oh, right. Okay. Inspect the ISMC Racing McLaren. Tara's racing for Duarte. Graham with Pink Lady Apple. I will say, if you haven't had a Pink Lady Apple, absolutely slaps. It is so good, and you can't tell me otherwise. Then Dave Hasser, Bonnie Blue, and Eduardo Sanchez joining us last second. Also, welcome Quasar. Did I win the ugly livery? Sure. Sure, you win. Everybody wins in our book.
That's so nice.
Oh, there he is. I hear him. You sound very far away, Sam. Please put the microphone into your esophagus. That way we get the best sound. But hopefully get Kevin in here as well rather soon. Like I said, you know, Sam is always here like right when he needs to be here, right after the race, and then Kevin has to probably do a couple of backflips and do this and that and the other thing. So we'll see him in hopefully just a little bit. Sam, have you fixed your audio issues? Yes or no?
Everything's full.
Can't hear you. Have you tried leaving the call, unplugging? Maybe just like leave the call, close Discord, unplug the mic, plug it back in, and then we'll try again. And we're fast forwarding to the next session. That's peculiar. What in the world? I'm really tempted to type in chat. So are we in? We're in qualifying. What? We're in qualifying 2? So, did we miss race 1? No, we didn't. Race 1 never happened. So... What?
30 seconds.
What is going on?
20 seconds. 10 seconds.
What? Guys, I'm scared. Someone please hold me.
What's going on?
You are still very far away.
Green light. Go, go.
What is going on?
Green light.
What are we doing?
Green light.
Okay, we're going into qualifying now, I think. I don't know what's going on. We came in here right at the end of qualifying.
Green light. Green light. Go, go, go.
So I think we're in qualifying now. Okay. Yes. Well, now we can take a look at all the ugly liveries. That was a little painful. Oh, goodness. Well, while we wait for Sam to work out audio issues. Sam?
I am so annoyed.
There he is. We hear him.
I haven't changed anything since last time, but okay,
Lies.
wait. Are we in qualifying or not?
We are in qualifying, yes. So I'm guessing what they wanted to do was they wanted us to be here for qualifying. And when I strolled up, qualifying had literally just ended.
Okay, so clearly Backerton won't get P1, right?
Congratulations, you have just unintentionally cast or cursed. In a very strange and odd way.
Sure, unintentionally.
Well, while we're at it, let's take a look at these liveries. So, I have Duarte, same livery he's always been running, Sean Williams, with classic pink and blue. Obviously, one we've seen. Graham with that pink Lady Apple, very classic, very beautiful looking colors. Backerton as well with the same livery. Chris Stevens with the white. I wonder what the color white has to do with the Wolf of Wall Street. Probably something in the movie, I'm sure. Tim Brook, here we go. Offensive to the eye. What do we think? Is it offensive to the eye? I think so.
Yeah, that's pretty awful. Also, the Lambo Countach in Wolf of Wall Street was white.
Ah, okay. I was thinking, like, cocaine, but that works a lot better. Because yours is more appropriate.
I mean,
Steve
they're doing
Davis.
cocaine in the thing, so yeah.
Okay, so we're both right, technically. All
Well,
right.
yeah, I was listening earlier, and they were talking on one of the earlier races how you can sort of forgive some of the colors sometimes, but awful colored wheels, when they stand out, that sort of just draws your eye to be ugly.
Yep, Tim Brook is definitely that. Steve Davis. His colors remind me, I don't know if you... It feels like it's some candy you would see in a store that's like tropical fruit flavored or whatever, and then you bite down into it, and then it just tastes like garbage. Because that's the vibe I'm getting. No, it looks more like pink
Don't know what
lemonade.
kind of childhood you had, but
Good one. I had a good one.
my childhood didn't have garbage tasting candy.
Okay, well, shush. Nathan Specht. Okay, here we are. This is looking good. Classic green pink. Not quite the 90s green purple that we've seen. Michael Louis, same livery as always. Oh, goodness. John, what did you do to that poor beaver, or that poor Porsche? I like the purple wheels, though. I like the purple wheels. I don't know if... do I like it? Okay, it's starting to grow on me. Oh, that might be the tumor it's giving me. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, it comes together somewhat more than, you know, if you look at some of these liveries that have a bunch of sort of smaller shapes inside the larger shapes. When you have something that's flowing like that, no colors can really look that bad in the right livery.
That's true. Yeah, it works out pretty well. Now, what doesn't work is this BMW right here, Keith Briscoe. Definitely living up to that team name, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, especially with the big pig nose on that stupid car.
The very bright green. It reminds me of, you remember those like plastic vampire teeth you get for Halloween? They used to glow in the dark. That's what I'm getting.
Sir.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I can see that.
Let's see what else. Tadas Lucas, same livery he always runs. Respect the hustle. Eduardo Sanchez, of course, rocking a very nice, I would assume, Mexican-themed livery with the colors of his nation's flag, the white, the green, and the red. Very good stuff.
I believe it's Independence Day tomorrow, right?
It might be. I'm actually not certain. Oh, his team is Viva la Independencia, or Independencia, excuse me. Gotta brush up on my Spanish a little bit. So it probably is Spanish Independence Day. Safety car, of course, looking absolutely gorgeous. Dave Hasser, I actually like that. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's actually well done. I don't know if he's trying for the ugly livery or not. Kind of hard to tell there.
No, I think ugly livery goes to oh, where is it? I'm gonna kick myself. Keith Briscoe. I think for this split, he definitely has won that little battle.
Can we watch Graham's for a sec? I think it's like two-tone in a weird way. Yeah, I didn't see that earlier. That's not bad.
No, that's the same livery that's been ran this entire season. Or actually, I believe the first race was a different livery, but after that it was this, and I actually really like it.
Yeah, it's not bad. The weird way the stripe curves and gets bigger at the front is just what got me. But
yeah,
it is cool because from the side, as you see it goes by, it's completely different colors both times.
Yeah, I also just really like it because of the team name. So, Graham, if you see this, great team name. Amazing apple. Have you ever had one?
Maybe, but I had a Pink Lady vodka last night. Does that count?
Ooh. If you have the ingredient list and the recipe for that, could you like send that my way? 'Cause that sounds really good right now.
Well, it was at a concert, so no.
Figure it out. Just use your like 200 IQ and just remember. Duh.
Yeah, maybe we can call up Shinedown and be like, yo, what's that vodka you guys brought?
I mean, I went to, there's this one place near me, and they had this drink called Electric Melonade, and I took a picture of it, and whenever I go somewhere, or not whenever I go somewhere, sometimes when I go places, I'm like, hey, could you, like, make this? And they're like, oh, we'll see. I'm like, I don't care what the price is, throw a price on it, I'll pay it. But if I go back to the place I got the original from, I'm like, hey, I know it's, like, the middle of winter, can you make this summer drink for me so I can pretend like I'm feeling some warmth in my life?
That weirdly brings me, so a game that I used to play with friends is there's this app where you can do like roulette from the type of glass, the type of alcohol, and the type of mixture, and then it comes up with a shot that uses those, or a drink that uses those, and we just lock in the shots. And that somehow linked me to, I feel like in something like ACC or any other racing game,
what?
you could randomize your livery. That's what I want to do.
Okay, I was so confused. I'm like, where is this going?
Well, yeah, I just thought, like, what if, because you can just sort of shake your phone and suddenly randomizes this drink. What if you could just press rando on this livery? I mean, maybe it'd be ugly as hell and you'd win.
Just like to take a moment to remind everybody at everyone here at the OOR, don't drink unless you're legally able to, and of course, don't drink and drive. It's stupidly dangerous. Man, that really threw me for a loop.
I told you it was a weird one.
I mean, to be fair, I've had similar moments where it's like, hey, one thought, here's this completely unrelated thought, and the only thing that links them is this one sentence that I heard. And somehow, some way, I make it make sense. So, yeah.
I also was sort of forcing it, trying to get it back into the qualifying year, because, I mean, that 54.6 isn't actually looking that good.
No, it's not. Compared to what Bakken was rocking at the start, or at the end, rather, of qualifying, I'm sure he'll pick things up. And then it's Tim Brook P2 with a 54.79, Keith Briscoe a 54.83, and then Matteo Sceptura just a little more, or needs a little bit more than 900ths to make it into the 54 club. Sanchez, what in the world? Where did that come from? A 54.26, 3/10 more than Backer, and even he can't believe it.
Yeah, it's got to be like tire pressures or something on Backerton's setup. Couldn't have come through or something. I mean, maybe he just, had a bad run, but that's a great run by Sanchez.
Oh, no, that's absolutely incredible. And the thing is, this is a track that favors things like the McLaren, like the Audis, like the, actually, that's about it. BMW to some extent. So, perhaps, oh, that was very, very close. So, perhaps, yeah, Backerton getting a little bit more out of... Oh, there it is. There it is. So 53.49.
Yeah.
Sorry, Backerton. I didn't mean to say anything. I apologize. I was just making a joke.
I was actually just going to say Porsche's straight line speed has been suspect, but yeah, never mind. I mean, that is one of the other things is this track really favors the bold, especially for qualifying, right? If you can lower your wing, lower your downforce as much as possible and still make it around in one piece, you're going to get a fast time. If you care about crashing, then I don't do that. But, last race I sort of tried to push it and I got something like 7 out of the 8 qualifying laps deleted, so
yeah, I saw that.
that's what you're trying to do is just minimize everything, see if I can hit this turn a little bit different, and if it comes together, I was 2 seconds faster in practice when it comes together, but you're looking here at like Backerton, I mean a 53.49 is that like almost 3/10 or so below what ours was?
Oh, my memory's bad. My memory doesn't work when I stream for some reason. I think it definitely seems like a lot faster than what your top Q1 drivers are doing. Obviously not Q2, that was a little different. But yeah, I think Backerton is just leagues ahead of Corkscrew. But we'll double check that, of course, and by that I mean we'll check later in the broadcast after the broadcast is over.
A little bit interesting to see where what is it, John Steele's doing. I mean, he came up and fought Backerton a lot of last week. He hasn't really set a lap, I guess, but I mean, is he out there?
He's out. He just did a lap of 55.81 is enough for P8 at the moment. So he's going to be looking to... I think he was just come out of the pits and was just doing a flying lap. So he's going to have to get those tires and brakes up to temperature and pressure.
Yeah, I guess always a chance that last week's track he was just really good at. But it's going to be interesting to see if he can compete again, because those 2 Porsches up front, whenever you have that sort of deal, it's so hard to drive those cars, and 2 people driving them well is just sort of amazing to watch when it's, neck and neck. And then Backerton goes away. But the point is, it starts off
It's really good for that first, like, half a lap. And then Backerton's like, oh, wait, that's right. I'm supposed to be, like, far in the lead. And then just, like, hits the NOS button like it's Fast and Furious. But,
yeah, it's too bad we couldn't combine Druids and Corkscrew or something.
See, that's what I was talking with Bauer. I think it was after the stream. Yeah, no, it was after the stream because we were talking about, split sizes and, the kind of, I don't want to say care, but the attention that, NA and EU gets compared to AP. Obviously, AP is the largest region, so they are going to end up getting the most attention overall, which we can't really do anything about. It's totally fine. But I told Bauer, I was like, hey, I'm thinking, because I was looking at the attendance sheets, and I said we could just combine the 2 races. But then I realized that probably would have been like a last-second sort of deal, which wouldn't have gone over too well.
Well, the main problem is you've got people on the West Coast that, can sort of make the beginning of the second race. And people on the East Coast that, if we start the second race now, might be exhausted and go to sleep halfway through, depending. So, yeah, I'd like to combine as far as numbers go, but yeah, the timing doesn't really work out. It's sad though, because if you look at, the AP races, it seems like every sort of group has at least a couple people they can, battle with.
Yeah.
So if you're slow, there's at least some other people you might be able to practice and race with. But, in a group of 14 like this, you can have clumps, but anyone who's outside that clump, it becomes a practice real fast.
It does, and we saw it in your race, not just with you, Sam, but welcoming to the booth, no offense, Kevin Parody.
Hello.
That's a transition.
Yeah, that was what an introduction.
Thank you.
That race was why you race, I guess. That first one, I did poorly. Ran into a parked car and then spun and damaged myself. Ended up a lap down, but that super quali gave me a chance to kind of refocus and ended up, I believe, with my first 10th of the season. So, small field or not, I will take a top 10.
Yeah, you did. I was, I mean, yeah, like you said, small field or not, we take those, and you did a very good job. Now, one thing I did mention while we were watching that second qualifying was, out of the two of you, whoever qualified in front of the other would have gotten my undying praise. The other one of you, Sam, was going to get ridiculed by me. So, you said earlier you were trying to push, but I don't know if that's really the case.
Well, were you watching with my brake lights or the speed I was doing on some of those outlaps? It would take 2 full laps to get my tires up to anywhere close to a pressure I could deal with. And so I was trying to swerve, trying to hit the brakes and stuff. It made me sort of spin and slide, just trying to get pressure in the tires. So I only had 2 or 3 runs where I could have really pushed it, and 2 of them I messed up real bad, so I just sort of tried to stay in the lines for 1. But yeah, I had tires too low in qualifying 2 and too high in the race. Great times.
All right, I will accept that as a explanation.
Well, if I remember correctly, I believe I had swerved around a car that turned, and then Kevin, was that you behind me that crashed directly into him?
Yeah, a little bit of target fixation going on there. You went left, and I thought, I'll go right, and I started to turn, and the car didn't turn, and then suddenly I just looked at his door and drove into it. So I had to stick around and apologize after the race for that. Everything's okay, but yeah, it was a double insult for them because they had been spun, and they did exactly what you're supposed to do. They locked the brakes and they sat perfectly still, and they got punished for that by me. So apologies again. But yeah.
Tim Flamger's a real good guy. I raced with him, or I've done some racing with him outside of this stuff, and for a couple years now, he's really helped me out. And so I think it's fair to say, yeah, he might have got spun or whatever, but he was sideways in the middle of the track. It's definitely not your fault if you come into him, especially from behind me. There's no apologies needed there.
Well, there may not be any apologies needed, but there is a certain irony to it because I ran into him in a car that has his setup in it.
Yep. When you said you hit him and he was standing still, I was thinking there was some tree in a desert. It was the only tree for miles around, and someone managed to hit it. And I'm starting to wonder if that might have been you in a past life, Kevin.
Oh, that's Murphy. Me and Murphy. Yep, we crash planes into the only tree, trip over the only rock in a field. Yeah, it's what makes life interesting and fun.
Oh, is that what we call it now?
Yeah.
That's being clumsy?
Well, also, if you watch closely, Flamger did purposely kind of get into what would be P1 in the reverse. Might as well do that if you're going to get hit.
No, that was one thing I commented on, is he could have gotten around, I believe it was Thompson, at any point in the race and just didn't, because he knew that he was going to revert or gain from that reverse grid, and we saw it exactly. He pulled away from the grid and just got out of town, and then Dornelis, an amazing run up from P12.
Well, I am going to mitigate that a little bit because I talked to them after the race. They had very close to 30 seconds of damage. So they may not have caught up to and taken that position, but if they had, they'd have still been on the front row, which I think would have been okay. But yeah, there was, between the 2 hits, they had almost, as I said, I think 30 or 34 seconds of damage, which is enough to really slow you down here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially on the Mistral straight, you suffer immensely.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if qualifying here does apply to racing here. I mean, there were, I think, 3 or 4 people real close, and then 7 tenths to Backerton. That doesn't count. But I think the P2 through P5, it looked like they were all getting pretty close, and they have similar cars too.
This track is damp. I just noticed this.
Oh geez.
So that's gonna change everything.
Yeah,
Some of those hyper low force downforce dry setups are going to become extremely interesting to drive.
One of the problems with this, in this video game, at least for me, and I'm sure it's perfectly well set up, but when things are just slightly different like this, I may not look up and see, oh, track is damp or whatever. I just sort of look at the temperature. It doesn't look like it's raining. Okay, send it. And then you go out there and, well, I've seen some races in OOR where it definitely looks like people did not check the weather, and I can relate to that.
Well, I mean,
that entire pressures.
That, yeah. Well, you check them when you get to them. One thing at a time, Kevin. Come on, we're not all multitasking gods like you.
Well, the funny part with that is they were mentioned that the conditions had changed between races, and some of us still didn't change pressure. So that's on us.
Yeah, actually, when the conditions do change and I quickly change pressures, that's when I'm off. Because I'm like, I think I should add 3, and it's clearly I should have added 2 or 1.9437 or something. But when you have to sort of guess from a tune that you've done for certain temperatures, I mean, you just can't have a tune for every temperature. So you do kind of have to guess, 1 psi here or there can make a big difference, especially at a track where your front left tire, I believe, gets a lot of wear, and then it cools down a whole lot of the time. So you're sort of watching those tire pressures fluctuate throughout the lap. If you get it wrong, there are so many turns where you need your trail braking, you need your tail to kick around, and I was just washing out and understeering in every one of those.
It's also a track of two. I mean, I'll call it two halves. It's I realize it's got 3 sectors, but there is the backstretch, and then there's everything else, and they really are 2 different tracks. If you could have an adjustable wing in this game, then this track would be much more interesting. Going to 0 wing on that straightaway, and maybe we need DRS. Maybe that's what we need to add next year. But
don't give the devs any ideas.
Yeah. Good track to race on, not bad. I don't mind driving around on it. It's I find it a little hypnotic. I think that's my only argument against it. I keep sort of, it's got similar sections, and you have to sort of concentrate to remember where exactly you are.
So Nick, did you get time to run a couple laps here this week?
No, I was working and doing school and a couple of other things. Although I do have experience on this track in the past, and I know it's a very polarizing track, and I've already stated my stance where I don't like racing on it, but I love watching races on it. And I do pass the question to you guys. How do you feel about Paul Ricard?
Well,
it's all right. The silence is all I needed to hear. Thank you, gentlemen. So we are here on the back of the safety car.
I actually like to race on this track, this backstretch. If you're in a group of cars, as was mentioned earlier, then it's fun. If you're all by yourself, it's gotta, check your messages and maybe make a phone call or 2. But if you're racing with somebody, just playing the draft on this back straight, because it kind of leads to nowhere. There's no really obvious passing zone at the end of it. You've got to stay close through this bend, which is hyper high speed, and then start looking, because there's not really an obvious and clear heavy braking zone that you would hope that, or at least a typical passing zone, right? High speed into low speeds.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is definitely one of those tracks where if you get things right, it really feels good. You can feel that flow and the line being correct, because there's so many things you come into really fast, and you sort of have to hit the line right, and then you have to brake really hard and not let off, so you spin. So it's really, it is technical in ways like that, but I mean, I can open up a seltzer, I stretch my back, and I did do that. I was stretching, and I took a drink and started yelling at my tire pressures, so yeah. I think the other problem too is, I don't know how many people here did, but for the Enduro recently for Paul Ricard, I was practicing qualifying for that. So I've done way too many laps at this track now.
Can't relate.
Fair enough. It's not in my regular roster, and I don't do the Enduros, so I honestly, when I went to it to start practicing this week, I had to blow a bit of dust off of it. But like every track we've done this year, and it says something about the quality of the people we're racing with. I feel better about the tracks than I did before this season. Like they're more fun than I thought they were. But these guys are up and running, ready to go.
Green light. Go, go, go.
Green, green, green. It's an excellent start for Sanchez and Backenden as we head down to turn 1. He's got a whole sea of BMWs behind them. It's like the entire country of Germany has just showed up. So we go down to turn 1. Drivers having to adjust their braking lines down as we go. It is going to be Backenden taking advantage of that. Sanchez gladly going to slot in behind. And then it's Brook, Briscoe, Skaptura, Hasser, Davis, Louis, Steele, all the German manufacturers in the top 10. The only one not there, or sorry, even Williams got the safety car being counted as Sanchez going very, very wide there. Manages to hold the position, but everybody, Michael Louis getting the worst of it, it seems like. Not the best start from him, but other than that, up at the start, it's been, or up at the front, it's been a very, very good start for Backenden, already opening up a pretty significant gap to Sanchez.
Steele or Hasser went wide in turn 2, I believe, but seems to have pulled it back in pretty well.
Look at the slipstream here that Brooks got alongside the 21 McLaren of Sanchez. Sanchez probably running a bit more aero on his car, so he's not going to be as effective on these front straights, but he's going to go back into that slipstream as we head down towards the final, or the turn at the end of the straight. And in the background, we saw Williams and Steele as well, doing some side-by-side. It's going to be Williams like it's the best of that, although as I say it, running wide is the pink McLaren. Steele thinking about a move down the inside. Besides against it, Williams losing that McLaren a little too much.
A little bit of follow the leader there, but the follower recovered faster than the leader, and now they're racing for position.
Yeah, it's that connection of the straight coming into a really fast swooping turn, and then still sort of a fast turn that you're kind of just holding off on. The patience you need if you mess up to pull yourself back online is really hard, and you saw that right there. He didn't have enough patience. He pulled the trigger too early and went wide in 2 turns in a row.
And as you mentioned earlier too, tire pressures. Even if you got them right, they're not up yet. They're only 1 lap into this, and as you mentioned, it's at least 2 before they're up, and they fluctuate a lot here too. And to be honest, I don't know what the wet tire pressures do here.
Well, are they on wets? Track is greasy right now. Have we checked anyone's tires?
Let's see if I can get some on the HUD. Alright, so here we go. Backerden's on dries, Sanchez on wets, Brooks on dry, Briscoe getting a move done on some dry tires as well. Skaptura, Davis on dries, Williams on wets, dries for Stevens, wets for Specht, dries for Steele, Graham, Hasser, Louis, and Duarte. So most drivers opting for that dry tire, but some going for the wet, so I'm wondering how this is going to play out.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting as soon as those wet tires come up to speed and up to temperature, because greasy is not wet, and those things catch fire real quick.
They do.
Then again, if you don't have a wet setup and you put on wet tires, maybe you're quickly changing some settings and just put the pressure way down, and the temperature is sort of low right now. Maybe you can still get it right, and I don't know how they do if they are actually, in pressure on somewhat dry, but it is impressive seeing that Sanchez is still so close to P1 with the different tires. You could see it sort of, I think, in the start, that maybe he got a worse start because of that. But now, he's still following pretty good.
Yeah, no,
It's interesting to see what happens to those tires over the course of the next couple of laps. As you said, greasy is not only hard to drive, it's really hard on wet tires.
Yeah, lights
And you
them
look
up.
down and see 31 or 32 temperatures and a balloon in the corners. Oh dear, this is going to be a long 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I think, some of these drivers who threw on wets, maybe they're like, oh, the track's damp, but you have to take into account how quickly a line can dry. And then not only that, that because there's no rain, that line isn't, while not being completely erased, it's having some sort of, buffer for those wet tires. So there isn't enough liquid on the track to actually cool them. So, is it a case of just stick with it and go to the end, or are we going to see people going into the pit lane to swap?
I think in the 20-minute race, unless it's just completely undrivable, they might not. But I will say this track has sort of a unique issue for people like me who are sometimes not on the track. And when we're off, the grip around here on those outskirts, it just tears up the tire. You immediately have like 5 more PSI if you slide off, you know, a big slide. But you can really tear the tires up and get them up to a higher pressure and screw up your next turn just by going off a bit. In a wet tire on that, I can't imagine that's going to work very well.
I think, yeah, that's one you might get away with a little one. But if you've done that more than once, yeah, it might no longer be your choice as to whether you're coming in. The other thing I want to watch is the track limits. I wasn't expecting it to be an issue, but I finished with 3, and it's damp and greasy out there now, so that makes it just that much easier to slide off. So I'm interested to see if we start seeing some of those penalties pop up as the race goes along.
What happened to Duart? Why is he 21 seconds back?
Looks like may have had maybe a little bit of an excursion, a little twist, and gentlemen, I don't know if you noticed, but it seems like we got some shadows on track all of a sudden. So now if you're on wets, you are really starting to regret your decision, because you know how quickly that sun can dry this track, especially as the temperature is going to increase. So what is going to be a greasy track might be more green, if anything, and if you're on wets, you're going to have to get off of those because you are not going to have any sort of grip to work with.
Yeah, one nice thing is this track does offer a few different ways to affect your tire pressure when you're driving. So, like for me, I would adjust my brake bias so that I would have less force on my front tires, because that's what I was getting way too much pressure in, and it would cause me to understeer in the slow turns. But then I ended up destroying my rear tires at some point, so I changed the brake bias back, and now I have, you know, pressure up front. But you can really play around with that, especially if you do that sort of on the fly. You know, on that back straight, if you sort of switch things around a little bit, the straight cools your tires down really well, at least it does, you know, in my experience. And then you come into that last turn, and if you change where that brake bias is, you can really affect which tires get the G-forces, and therefore the friction, and therefore the heat.
It's some pretty high-level stuff that I don't think a lot of people really think about, especially when you look at most races and you're doing, you know, Monza in the dry. But as one famous little interview went with one of the heads of ACC. But yeah, so again, we should be seeing cars coming in ideally relatively soon, within the next lap or so, because I think no matter how much brake bias adjustment you're going to do, I don't really think it matters all that much when every single tire, regardless of what you're doing, is screaming at you.
That's true, but Sanchez is still in second place. Brooke is closing the gap, but they're still up there. This is absolutely a race of two halves. In a minute and 45, we'll be at halfway, and I think that's going to be about the time when those tires are really going to be screaming for mercy. So it might literally be the first half of the race was for the wet-tired folks, and the second half of the race was for the dry-tired folks, and we'll see how it ends up at the end.
Yeah, 20-minute race, if you don't see any weather changing up on the 10 or 30-minute, it's not changing.
No,
so I feel like you can see that right at the beginning, you know? But
Yeah.
maybe it was too much of a gamble for some of those people to take the dries and just send it.
We are seeing both the dry line now and people avoiding it already to keep the tires cool. So it's all coming to a head. We've got a really good race here for third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah, we do. Brooke and Briscoe rocking up here with Sanchez down the back straight. Both of their Brooke using the slipstream to get around the McLaren, and that's even going to pull Briscoe up into this. We could possibly see 3 wide as we get to the end of the Mistral straight. Brooke is ahead. Briscoe trying to make it work around the outside. That he does. A very good move. And, you know, the speed difference, not just because of the slipstream, but because Sanchez most likely is running a higher downforce setup, is not gaining as much time as he would like on that back straight. because that's where a lot of McLaren drivers are sort of, I don't want to say ignoring, but they know they're going to be faster, especially through sectors 1 and 3. So couple that with tires that are definitely starting to get a little bit hot under the collar, and he is going to be looking at a pit stop unless he wants to really push those tires.
We are at the halfway mark.
Yeah, this Briscoe Brook fight, I guess it's there. Because they're really close in a couple of these turns, and if they come at it again on the straight, I think they're going to go too wide down at the end of Mistral. I think that those guys are going to be a group that we're going to see fighting this entire 20-minute.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. These two have been incredible rivals throughout the whole season, especially when they get close to each other. It's always exciting to watch.
Yeah, you could see earlier too when we were looking back at John Steele, who's kind of stuck back down 11th. That was the Porsche catching the Lamborghini and the BMW in front of him, and then when he got on the Mistral straight, even though he had a better launch, he just sort of got left behind. So these guys, 2 BMWs, as long as they're driving somewhat similar, you don't really have that car-to-car issue. You just gotta keep it accurate and, you know, just sort of drive safe, I guess. We only got 9 minutes left. If you mess up now, you get that 10-second penalty like Williams has there. That's killer in this sort of a race.
It is. Gatura taking advantage of Sanchez's unfortunate situation, and same with Davis forcing the issue, going down the inside at the end of the Mistral straight. He knows that McLaren's got a little bit more downforce on it, but he doesn't care. There's some contact there. Hopefully nothing to penalize, just more of a racing incident, but you can just see Sanchez is really starting to fall off now with these tires, with these drying track conditions.
Probably wishing you could actually drive these tires until they turned into slicks, but that is not how it works.
No, officer, my tires don't have treads. They're called race slicks.
Yes. They had tread when I left the house this morning. I'm not sure what happened. But we've got Steele all over Stevens, just showing again that not all the best fights are at the front, nor are they all in the famous marks. We've got a Porsche and a Lamborghini back here battling it out.
Yeah, it's always, it's the one thing I try to tell people about, not just, the OR, but motorsport in general, is even though you may have people, it's exciting to be like, oh, this guy's up front, he's racing so well. There's always going to be battles going on, regardless of where you are. I mean, you might get to a point in a race where it's just more of a hot lap situation, but these guys and gals out here show us that, like you said, Kevin, it doesn't really matter where you are. You're going to find a battle.
Those first couple laps in both races. I like the super sprint format, and it's probably going to cause some ruffled feathers, but I like it because you get 2 starts. And those, there is nothing more exciting in motorsport than being in the middle of a start when you're not at the front and you're right in amongst everybody and trying to avoid messes and make up positions without losing space and trying to balance between that aggressive and defensive stance. And I wouldn't want to do it more than twice. I don't think my heart could take it more than twice in a night, but boy, it's fun.
Well, speaking of aggressive and defensive, it was Briscoe with a very aggressive line at the end of the Mistral straight with that slipstream from Brook up into P2. And while everybody's been fighting from second to, basically Backerton has completely skipped town at this point. 9 seconds. And, this is pretty typical for the Porsche driver. But I'm sure Brook is definitely not ready to give or let Briscoe go that easily.
Well, this is one of those situations where because you have something like the Mistral, it's really easy to have an overtake pretty much every lap and swap positions. So, who's going to get that last one? Are they going to dive on each other? That's what might end up happening. You have that battle where you actually are neck and neck down these straights each and every time. Near the end of this race, do you push it, or do you just try to make it? Because, next race, things are swapped around. Maybe you want to be a little behind, maybe you have some strategy, but that's what I'm wondering about, at least these 2 guys.
There's also a sort of Daytona, Indianapolis sort of vibe to this back straight. It is so long and so fast, and the draft is so important that if you fall out of the draft, you can just watch the car ahead of you just drive away. It gets out to that 0.7 seconds, and when it gets to 0.8, you're done. You're not going to see them unless they mess up a corner. So staying within that magic 7/10 can, without suffering front aero wash and crashing, is kind of key. That's what Brooke is doing right now to Briscoe.
Yeah, a lot of that
second place.
Swapping. I talked about it in the first race where it's like, you may just say, hey, I'll just keep swapping positions back and forth with you, and it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And Kevin, you mentioned about the falling out of that 7/10, barring somebody messing up a corner. Well, thankfully there's a very fast sweeping right-hander that we do see people mess up quite often, it feels like. I mean, we saw it in the last race with I forget who it was, but just getting a little bit, ooh, that's interesting, getting a little bit just loose on the outside curb and spinning out. So, while you mentioned that, someone, you say, messing up a corner as though there's not going to be a corner to mess up at, that's what the end of the Mistral Straight is for, it feels like.
Amongst others, yeah, there's lots of places you can outbrake yourself here. Those really high-speed corners, if you leave 10K too much on the table when you get through it, you're going to be riding a slide until you get it controlled. So they're still there. This is, to me, the one thing that keeps coming back with this track is the decreasing radius corners, and they're fun in high downforce cars, but these big heavy cars that lose so much of their downforce at lower speeds, it can get a little tiresome just slowing and slowing and slowing. And as you mentioned earlier, the patience that is required on this track, and then the timing to get it just right on the apex and get the power down. Again, if you mess up this little bit before the Mistral Straight, you're going to just watch them get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, if you think about Circuit of the Americas, Coda, there's a lot of those decreasing radius turns where you just have to wait and wait, and it feels so slow. But if you try to give it gas, you're going to wash out, and it's awful for me if you're not able to just wait like that. But watching someone who really knows what they're doing is really impressive. If you see, like, these two guys swapping back and forth, when you watch them in those decreasing radius turns, you can see when one gets on the gas and then the other gets on the gas. They're both at the same point.
Yes.
And that's how they stay together in these turns, because they're not swapping turns. They're not only ending up on the straight. They're driving very similar line.
That line is now officially green. So those folks that are still on the wets, how they're doing it. Although they made it this far, so this lap and one more, and they should be at least surviving. And in some cases, I think we still got one on the podium, do we not? It was Briscoe. Oh no, sorry, it was Briscoe or Sceptura that started on the wets?
Let me double check. So Sceptura's on the dries, same with Briscoe and Brooke as well. The next person that had wets is Williams. And we see Sanchez down in 11, so Sanchez is losing a lot of time with that with that wet tire selection. So definitely going to be kicking himself into the end of this race. But like you said, Kevin, these super sprints give you an extra shot at sort of rectifying your past errors.
Sanchez was just in P6. I wonder if there was an off. But also I noticed earlier Specht actually did pit, I imagine, to get rid of the wets.
Yeah, he is way down the field. That is absolutely a pit level gap. And well, we see right now Sanchez still just being swallowed up by this field. Graham going for a move and quickly usurping that P11 away from the McLaren driver. Things going from bad to worse. Although the plus side is that if Sanchez can hold on for another lap, he will start on pole.
That was his plan the whole time. See, I told you, he just wanted to drop back until he got there.
It's too big brain for me. I'm too small brain, too smooth. It's a marble up there, let me tell you.
Well, fortunately, in 30 seconds we get to watch a qualifying with just two cars again.
Yep. Well, I mean, we could put the safety car in there, too. I would, honestly, I feel like for one race, like maybe the last race at the end of next season, we should let the safety car do some quali laps, just to see what happens.
Just add a certain level of humiliation to a few of us to get out-qualified by a really good driver at a GT4 car.
Yeah, Sam. I mean, I didn't name anybody. Definitely not.
Okay, but what if the safety car
I'll throw
hits
myself
somebody?
under that bus.
What happens if the safety car has a collision?
Then it just brings itself out. It's like a Matryoshka doll, where just like a smaller safety car pops out and drives along.
Yeah, a mini. We are 4 tenths fighting for second place. That first place has sort of had Backert and stapled to it most of this season, but Brooke and Briscoe are absolutely not done deciding this yet.
No, and as we get to the Mistral Straight, Brooke he knows that Briscoe is in slipstream range. He knows that there is a chance that a move gets done, although the gap, gentlemen, 7 tenths. 8 tenths now. Briscoe has just fallen out of that slipstream range. And wow, Sanchez making a move to get around Williams.
The Pink Lady Apple Graham just got around Williams, and then Sanchez too. I think Williams with that 10-second penalty was going to drop behind both of them if it finished this way anyway. But now they're doing the maybe drop back to get P1 move.
Well, we look back up to the front. I mean, I can't be too surprised. Vulcan Backerton continuing his domination here at Paul Ricard as he rounds the final corner. It's a P1 here. He's going to start P12 in the second race. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that this man was going to take the checker flag. And there it is. Very comfortable. Tim Brook holding on from Keith Briscoe, who thought about a move into that final corner, but just decides, hey.
But right behind them, there was an attempted move, and it didn't come off too well. There was a bit of contact.
Oh, at the line.
Captura and Davis.
So it looks like there may have been a bit of a questionable move, and maybe a little bit of a, hey, I'll give you this position back, I apologize. But yes, Captura Davis 5, Hasser in P6, and then it's Steele P7. And, well, it seems like the entirety of Germany just populating the top 7 positions. As the
shout out to Hasser. Sorry, shout out to Hasser as well, though, all the way up to 6. They started, they were well back in the pack at the beginning.
Yeah, it was a very solid drive. In fact, out of all the top 10 cars, only one is Italian. The other 9 are from Deutschland. So that should be a bit of an indication. It's especially surprising with the Porsche. I mean, it struggles with the the front straight or the back straight. So to have that sort of just domination, if you will, from Backerton is very telling. As Williams crosses the line, had a stop go, and that is converted to 50 seconds. Graham into the pits, and Specht with the drive-through, that is going to get converted to, I believe, a 40-second penalty, but realistically, it doesn't matter all that much.
With the penalty on Williams, Sanchez moves into P10, and there you go. 2 cars outside of Germany in P10.
Don't you mean Louis?
I see Sanchez in P10 on my screen.
No, I'm saying you said because Williams crossed the line. Wait, hold on, I'm confused.
Louis has a 10-second penalty, but they're 24 seconds clear. Is that not correct? So
no, okay, I just can't read.
Yeah, Williams' penalty dropped them down.
Okay, all right.
I see. Yes, yeah. Okay. Yeah, plus 50. That is a large penalty.
That is, absolutely. So, according to the game, Graham is still out on track. Obviously a lie. So we'll get fast-forwarded to the next session, and it'll be Specht and Graham, I believe. Yeah, Specht and Graham will go out and do a little 1v1. This isn't
I think
Rust.
that's just where they came into the server. The actual position of where they finished, because Graham was definitely up in the top 10, I think.
Well, we can check that actually. Go to the timetable. So in the race, Spec 13th, Graham 14th, according to everything. And then safety car, Lutkiss.
Doesn't make sense. Wow.
Stepping. I know, that's weird. I'm sure that the drivers are trying to figure that out along with the race directors. Although we do see Spec on the way out. So at least for one driver, it's confirmed. The other one should be Graham, unless again something has changed.
Well, there was a joke just before our super qualifying that we were absolutely positively not allowed to get in each other's way or crowd each other during the super qualifying. So with a 2-minute lap, it was assumed that we would not get all over each other. So there may be a little joke going on there again as well.
Possibly as Graham gets out of the pit. So yeah, I'm assuming they did the same thing that you guys are doing, or are doing. Words.
It's a surreal moment being part of an event where everything is waiting for you and one other driver to do a thing for 9 minutes, and then to watch it happening again is just it's an extra it's an interesting twist of the evening.
Bit of a red-faced moment as you got all those eyes just sort of leaning against the car, being like, come on, let's go, we got things to do.
It does actually get to me knowing that people are sort of watching, because, you know, I'm hard on myself. I'm the hardest one on myself, but you still sort of think, well, I'm slow. I'm here in this qualifying for a reason, and now all the fast guys get to go,
Well, hey, I don't want to tell you this, Sam. We do broadcast these races, so people do watch you, like, all the time. Just thought I'd mention that. Yeah, I know. Most people don't know that. I just thought I'd let you know, seeing as we're on the topic of the whole, watching, being watched by people sort of thing.
Except for you can broadcast these races, but you're not hopping back to see how I'm doing in any of these races.
That's not true. I think I got a couple of shots of you.
Neither one of us got lapped this season, so we didn't get any screen time.
There you go. See? There's positives in everything. Come on.
I just want to point out that with all those penalties and stuff, it seems like P1 for this reverse grid, I think he had the 50-second penalty. So, I don't know, coming at the end of that race, maybe you just go off a little bit too much, take a turn all the way on the inside, suddenly you're P1, you didn't need really to get P11, P12, it's fine.
Is this like a certain Formula 1 event where a driver purposefully crashed in order to help another win a race? I don't
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I'm not talking about the 2021 season. I'm talking a little before that. No, allegedly. It was Singapore.
There's enough viewers here. We better throw in allegedly.
Legally speaking, we have to say allegedly.
Well, so here's what's going to be interesting in the next few minutes, right? We have the reverse grid, so obviously that makes things interesting. But is the weather going to be similar to the last race? And if it is, does that make it even more dangerous having the reverse grid? Everyone popping in, what tires do I put on? Maybe they all know to put dry this time, but what if it rains? I can't wait to see if the weather's going to be different and a reverse grid, because I'm just glad I'm not driving in it.
It's probably going to be sunny for the start of the race, and then it's going to be just a complete downpour within like 10 minutes, and then you're going to have everybody diving into the pits. Now, obviously, I haven't seen the weather report for the race, so I can't really comment on anything. This is just allegedly again.
Well, it was a very interesting qualifying here, just because of the sheer speed of that back straight, except you're sometimes 10 or 12 kilometers slower than you were when you're in the draft of somebody. So of all the places where I think some people have got a separate quali setup, this is probably one of them. I don't have, it doesn't make any difference to me, but I suspect this is a place where you might want a lower downforce quali setup and then a higher downforce race setup. I'm not sure.
You're probably right. So Spect crosses the line 57.6, so Graham will try to best that. See who out of these two gets to take home a little piece of cake for Q2. So
hey Kevin, do you have an idea on what your top speed was sort of on average at the end of the Mistral?
By myself, about 277.
Okay, yeah. Someone was mentioning in a BMW like almost up to 290 with a slipstream and something, and it blew my mind.
I was I was 287 and I was running 4 weight.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
no idea how to take that turn. If you take the turn in practice by yourself over and over, you know where to brake, you know where to turn,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're going that much faster and
10K
behind somebody.
faster, and you've got arrow wash, and you can't see the apex. It's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Yep, that'll get you. Ooh, only 0.272 off. This is
Ooh.
we only got maybe 2 laps left if they can get him in.
Possibly. Graham has gone back into the pit, so if Graham leaves within the next, I'd say maybe 30 seconds, should be able to, or maybe 20 seconds, should be able to get another lap in. Spect absolutely will have time for another lap. And
Graham just dropped the mic, calling it. That's it. Go home.
That's all.
well, we'll see. It's a lot closer than the other qualifying.
We haven't talked about the ugly liveries much this evening, and there's a couple of them out there. I hope I don't want to say any names because I don't want to say a name and then have somebody say no, that wasn't a special livery for this week. But you know, there's some pretty hideous machinery out there.
Keith Briscoe.
No, you definitely have to say the name, and you know if they tried and got these, we're gonna roast them.
Keith Briscoe, please report to the steward's office. Ugly livery, Keith Briscoe, steward office. Thank you.
That's pretty nasty.
I like if you look at Brooks' car. I mean, it's kind of gaudy as everything, but also he's got the 404. So all I can think about is 404 livery not found.
yeah. I wish that livery wasn't found. That is nasty.
Or 404
Especially
case
sitting
not
right-
found.
Sitting right next to the 5, which has exactly the same pattern and similar, if it must be said, color patterns. Or
Oh
color
man,
choices.
Spec got closer. This is
310.
last lap. Are they up?
We'll have to see. There's still a long way to go, and this is where Specs is going to suffer the most. Again, high downforce for the McLaren is pretty much a must here at this track. And you will lose time on the back straight, but again, you make it up in sectors 1 and 3. 3/10 though. This will be enough to overtake. Now it's 4/10, but there's still about half a lap to go.
Well, so the interesting thing about having this many people, right, is when you're qualifying with only 2, you're going to end up on the same line. And since there's an even number of people, you're going to end up next to each other, not sort of, well, more or less next to each other. So, I mean, you know, big brain move, maybe you decide something or not. But really, where you come out in this qualifying determines if you're heading down the side that has a whole bunch of marbles and the harder turn into turn 1, or the side that gets on the inside. And I think that, you know, it might actually benefit, I think it would benefit you to be on the inside. So I think probably Graham in P1 does have that benefit as they'll be back in P13. But I'm not 100% sure. I just feel safer coming in on the outside because everyone else can crash in front of me.
I don't know. I think Graham won't be starting P13. Might be a little bit further back. Spect will take home a little consolidation prize for that Q2 victory of 57-10. So now we get ready for the very final race of Season 10. And of course, we do always have to save the best region for last.
I believe Graham walked back and picked up the mic.
Hey, you dropped this.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at these liveries one more time, Kevin, seeing as you obviously mentioned it. So we have Spect and Graham, of course, Skiptura, Duarte Williams, Backerton, Stevens. We're gonna just tell our camera to get a nice jog going. Brooke Davis, Louie, Steele, Briscoe. Can't talk about the safety car, and Dave Hasser and Eduardo Sanchez. So out of all these liveries, when it came to the ugly ones, I gave Keith Briscoe the winning ribbon, the blue ribbon, if you will, because that thing was just, I don't like it, kind of offensive.
I'm not going to pass that judgment, but I will point out that almost every BMW that's playing the ugly livery game used the same paint scheme.
That's true. They
I was gonna say the BMWs all sort of
That one.
seem to be the best players here, but I'm gonna
Yes.
dock every one of them points for cheating because it's already ugly.
It is. It is a hideous car.
No, you're right. It's not the prettiest looking thing I've ever laid my eyes on.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, if you
when,
can make
when you're inside it, you don't have to look at it. So.
Right, exactly. That's why you run it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's psychological. You know, people just get really creeped out. They're like, oh god, it's still there. Get away.
Yeah, but if you can make a 911 or a Ferrari ugly, you know, that gets.
That's
bonus points.
impressive. That's
yeah.
really hard to do.
Speaking of which, did you see mine and my team name?
I did, yes, I did. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. You will be paying for damages. Thank you very much.
I'm just glad that, you know, being slow and getting me into the Super Pole, what did you, 50% on both of us? That's like 4 minutes or 3 minutes of everyone having to look at that livery.
Yeah, roughly. It might have been a little bit more towards Kevin, because I was kind of waiting on you to put a lap in. But yeah, once Kevin finished up, I'm like, oh, let's go take a nice long look at Sam.
Oh, that was a long, slow burn right there, Sam. How you feeling?
He is.
Hey, that's cooler than I was already feeling.
At least you didn't run into a parked car today, so you can take that home with you.
Now, who would ever do something as silly as that?
What I'll take home with me is seeing in my rearview mirror that happen, just as I swerve just out of the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a moment there where the one of us that's the IRL race car driver, their skills, and the one that isn't showed their lack of. So
It's just a bit of a skill issue. It's okay. All right, so
the safety car is away.
yep. So now the race director is going to be calling out car numbers, and they'll line up. And of course, safety car doesn't even care about straight lines because well, we're going to be getting everybody sorted out. So we'll see if a straight line. Oh no, it's not going to happen. I think we're just going to have to catch up to the safety car.
Is safety car just sending it?
I think so. Oh no, safety car's parked up.
No, they're stopping. Yeah.
All right, so
It's such a long. They got us through the first. Could you call that a chicane? Not really. The first series of corners.
And there it is, Duarte already messing up the straight line. Good job. You had one job, dude. Just had to park it behind the bright pink McLaren, and you didn't. And yeah, it looks like. Do you guys have a ruler on you by chance, so we can kind of use that as like a guide to get everybody lined up?
That just looks like a BMW parking usually.
I mean,
Got a turn signal in sight.
no. You know, it's funny. I saw a little TikTok in this. It was a race, and this BMW had to pull off, I guess, for mechanical issues and throw on the blinker. And the commentator was like, "A BMW driver using his blinker." And I showed it to my brother because he drives Beamers. And he's like, "What's that?" And I go, "It's a blinker." He goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's something used to indicate where you're going." He goes, "Sorry, I don't speak poor. I don't know what that means."
Yeah.
I would say, looking at the track map, I don't know if the name means anything because I do not speak French, but I think 1 and 2 is definitely chicane, and I'm pretty sure I've heard in real race broadcasts they call that the first chicane.
Well, it is a chicane, and it's the first one you run into, so it's pretty accurate.
Well, the question though is, you know, what's the next chicane? Because the track maps are a little bit different when you look at it. I think there's 3 versions of the track map, and ACC only has 1.
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to the layout. I'm just like, yes, French.
Actually, this track has got, I forget how many possible layouts.
It's like
with all
100
these little
something,
offsets.
I think.
It's 100 plus.
Yeah, it says in the description, like when you select the map in-game, it'll tell you there's like 100 some odd configurations. And it's like, is that really necessary?
I just like looking at these on Google, how many of them have a chicane right on the Mistral, you know, like
Yes.
you look at Le Mans and they have that really long straight, they have chicane after chicane. You have to do that with cars these days, they're just so fast. But what would that do to these sprint races? Putting a chicane in the middle of the Mistral, I don't know. I mean, that's an F1 thing, I don't think that's a GT car thing.
Well, the thing is, if we didn't have, so the Mistral straight, it's 23, 24 seconds of just pressing forward. And I think if we had the chicane in, lap times would probably be probably close to 15 220s, I think, 230s. Like, it would be a long lap. Especially just considering, again, these are GT3 cars and not Formula 1 cars. But we're not here to debate that, ladies and gentlemen. It is the last race of the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series for Season 10. North America, of course, will be leading us out. A delayed start as the game waits for the proper car to cross the trigger line. 40 minutes on the clock, and it's green, green, green. And what a start from Sanchez, already hounding Williams. We're going 4 wide here down into the first turn. Abe Duarte finding himself with Louis on his left side. Has to back out. Sanchez making a move down to the inside. Same with Louis around the outside, getting that P2. Duarte trying to recover positions, and Sanchez trying to recover. Same with Duarte, and in the back, we have Stevens and Steele doing battle. Steele going to get the better of that one. And then, of course, it's the entire BMW manufacturing line behind them, all vying for position. What a jump there, though, from Sanchez.
The braking, I think, was what got through that first, just late break, got straight through the first turn and got up there. But in the background of that first turn or two, the 3 of the BMWs went in together, and the middle one did have a push.
We've got someone.
The
huge.
inevitable secondary.
Oh
dear.
God. Let's take a look at this. So Duarte just gets on. Those curves are deceptively big. Like oh God, Backerton got into that one. But yeah, those curbs. Oh my God.
I believe these are sort of the anti-motorcycle curb. There's 2 steps to them, and
Safety
if you
car
get
out.
if you get your tires inside that first, or sort of inside that first, and hook them on there, it can really throw you.
Well, we saw that right there with Duarte just coming over. We saw it even in the in what race in your races, one of your races, at the end of the Mistral Straight, just running out wide. And you go over those curves, and the thing just gets launched.
Yeah, that happened a lot when I was first learning the track, because you have to sort of start moving towards the apex while you're still at full speed to hit it right. And a lot of these cars, these mid-engine cars, or rear-engine, whatever, as soon as you let off the gas too much, the weight shift will kick your tail around. And if you kick your tail around at let's say 270 kilometers an hour, going over something that has a lot of friction, you're gone. And I did that a lot, and I'm kind of glad I didn't do that in the stream.
No, of course not. So, safety car picking up the field, so that'll give Sceptura and Backerton and possibly even Duarte a chance to fix things up. So Duarte just getting around the final corner now, but what a contrast from Backerton's first race. He was comfortably in the lead and just got bodied by that reverse grid.
Yeah, the other thing that happened is sort of what we were talking about with, me, Kevin, and Tim in the last race, is when you're right behind someone who sees what's happening in front, and then they move, and you have no time to react. It looked like there should have been time to react on that hit, but everyone's going down in a straight, and you've got 2 wide or something. You can't see anything in front of you. Go around a turn, you can at least see what's happening a little bit in front, even if you're behind someone. But that's the reason I think that crash ended up being so big, even at a time where they had 2-3 seconds to adjust their angle after.
Yeah, no, you see it a lot. It not just in this series, but I've seen it on ACC, on the subreddit. I've seen it in iRacing. I've seen it in Formula 1. I've seen it in everything, and not just sim racing, but even in real life, where someone is following a little too close behind and someone spins out, and you see the car in front move out of the way, and by the time you have a moment to register what exactly is in front of you, which in most cases is a car that's perpendicular, it's already too late.
Yeah, that happened to one of the Corvettes in IMSA last year. It was real bad.
Yep.
So here's a question, though. Sceptura and Backerton, they're back out, but I feel like one of them had to have more damage than that pit just took to fix. I may be wrong, but I do wonder if someone only fixed, some of their damage or one of the other things, and I think you can split it, right? What are the 2 damage things you can...
Maybe, I think...
Suspension and bodywork. They are separate blocks, yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if Backerton maybe just went for suspension or something.
Possibly. Maybe banking on just his overall pace alone to carry him through. It did look like in the crash that it was Backerton who got the worst of it, because Skeptura at least got a tap on the rear quarter panel, but it was Backerton who basically just went into the side of Duarte, who is now also out on track. So, yeah, it could be a possible just box tick.
Yeah, Backerton's car looks nice, so could just be wrong. But the nice thing is, you know, with the safety car here, you just get to take those pits and not lose nearly as much time as you would. That's really nice to allow that here in OOR. You know, that there's really not many leagues that I've seen that have an actual safety car, especially at this level. So this is good. The problem is this did happen in our first race of the season in our group. It might have been the 20-minute rather than the 40-minute. But the point is, look at the time. How much time do you have left? This 40-minute race just turned into a 30-minute race.
Well, I think it's only appropriate to have the very first race of the season have a safety car and the last one have a safety car.
I was just looking at Backerton as well. Because we did the reverse grid, they started in 12th with 40 minutes left. And now they're starting in 13th with 32 or 33 minutes left by the time they get around.
Roughly.
So they're kind of just reset with 6 or 7 minutes gone. So they still sort of in a not dissimilar situation to where they were before.
No, of course not. And the order was even shuffled up a little bit at the start, so maybe a driver who was a bit slower is a lot closer now. And in some regard, you could say that is possibly going to hold Backerton back a little bit more. But then again, if you really think about it, you could say something like, oh, but you know, if he's able to spend less time trying to get around that person, he's going to get back up on his feet. But with, you know, 33, 32, like you said, Kevin, it's going to be a tall order to try to get back up to the front in the amount of time that he has left, and especially waiting for Duarte to show back up, as he's just now closing in on the start of Sector 2.
And this restart is going to be real dangerous back in P10 to P13, because you've got Backerton and Skeptura, two, you know, near front level drivers, going against the two we just had qualifying and super qualifying, Specht and Graham. So when you come up on those slower, you know, back markers, I may or may not know about this a bit.
No, definitely not.
It's fairly easier for, you know, to get through those guys when they know what's coming and they have space. But going into turn 1 or turn 2, when you're sort of less experienced, a little bit slower, with someone like Backerton or in my case Dornelis, you know, coming right in behind you, that's dangerous, especially with what just happened to that group.
And the safety car is pulling in, so we now get to see how this restart plays out. Duarte just now getting through the Mistral straight, and it's hammers down for Sanchez, wasting absolutely no time on the throttle, trying to pull away Louis behind as well. Williams, Steele, Stevens, your top 5. Davis, Hasser, Briscoe, Brook, Graham, top 10. And already Louis going for a move here. That higher downforce on Sanchez already being a hindrance to his progress, as Louis is able to catch right up, and the rest of the pack is going to follow suit into the back. Graham and Specht now have Skeptura and Backerton behind them, so we'll see just how well these two drivers in the background can manage it, as down the inside goes Skeptura on Specht, not wasting any time at all and getting the move done, and now Backerton has to do the same thing.
Louis definitely timed that restart well behind Sanchez.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Also, you know, slipstream, the Audi has great straight line speed, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sanchez can stay in front, because you catch up like that, you're going to catch up like that in the Mistral, but that doesn't mean you can actually get around a car like the McLaren, especially if it's set up well. You get this overtake, the McLaren might take you in the turn, so this fight I think up front is going to be really fun.
Well, Louis already trying to make an issue of it, as using that slipstream he gets around. Now he's got to keep in mind the amount of downforce that Sanchez has to play with. Sanchez already starting to show it a little bit, almost going into the back of the Audi, and they're starting to pull away. John Steele struggling to keep up, and behind him is Williams, and Chris Stevens has a few too many BMWs behind him. He's got Davis, Hasser, Briscoe, Brook, and then just behind them is going to be Graham, Skeptura, Specht, and Backerton.
Shout out here to Williams as well. They started on the reverse grid pole and they have managed to stay out of trouble, and they're still running in fourth. They're the top amateur at the moment. And that is impressive. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, on an AM to be in amongst these pros, but for themselves, they are absolutely holding their own.
Well, you just got to keep it in the lines this time. And
Yep.
then he'll do fine. Interesting, though, that Backerton hadn't really moved up very quickly. Skeptura was able to get a jump there, but certainly, you know, Graham seems to be the cork in that bottle back there.
Yeah, he honestly is, and you can see Backerton just now. Backerton got around Skeptura, and now looking for a move down the inside of the Mercedes of Graham. Skeptura almost joining in on the fray, but now a lot of work for Backerton. Down the inside goes the BMW of Skeptura. It's a bump and a bang and a move on through. Wonder how the stewards are going to look at that. Backerton now in P10, and he can see just up ahead. Looks like everybody's got a slipstream except for him and Briscoe and Davis, or sorry, Stevens. Right now, Davis with the slipstream onto Williams for this P4 right now. It's door to door here as we head down the Mistral Straight. Very, very long time, and just up ahead, Louis has gotten ahead of Sanchez with Steele in the picture. So the two hot pink mobiles, going to see who is the bravest. And it looks like Williams just backing out of that one.
The three BMWs in the middle have been within half to maybe 0.7 of a second of each other for, you know, multiple laps. And now Backerton's coming up. He's got to thread that needle.
Oh, he's going to thread it beautifully. And speaking of beautiful threads, it was Sanchez who had a very good move down the inside of Louis, who sits back again in P number 2 with John Steele in hot pursuit, and Steve Davis as well. The man, of course, joining us from Australia. So I think good morning, if my time zones are correct. But as we have just passed the 30-minute mark, this is very far from over as Steven leads the pretty much all BMW crowd down for another lap here at Le Castellet. And this race, I think, is going to come right down to the wire.
Well, especially with all that time taken off. You know, the 20-minute races are short enough. 30 minutes a little bit more, but on a track like this, you know, if I'm not getting lapped, you're going to have a close race up front.
Definitely not speaking from experience.
Backerton and Hussar had a little door-to-door contact there on the way by, a small disagreement over territory, but no harm, no foul, I guess.
No, just making sure the door was closed. You know how finicky those doors are, always popping off and things. Backerton was just doing a little bit of community service, I'm sure.
Though not so much threading the needle as pushing it through.
Well, that's basically the same thing if you really think about it. Here, though, Chris Stevens under pressure. It's already Briscoe who's going side by side here, and that's even going to pull Brooke up into the picture. We could see 3 wide, or maybe Brooke's going to use his fellow BMW slipstream to try to make a move, stick around the outside. Here we go. Briscoe pulling ahead of Stevens, and Brooke into the picture and around the outside. An incredible move there. Stevens down into P8, and it's Brooke able to make the move stick. Incredibly
hold
brave.
on to the position. Wow, that's there's always that pause after that, especially at that part of the track. Is they made the pass, now can they make the corner?
Yeah.
The answer in this case was yes.
Thankfully, yeah, that is a very difficult corner to sort of maintain yourself in, especially when you come in at just that slightly off angle, because you know for a fact, you know how much speed you're going to need for that corner normally, but when you go off the line, you're going to get the marbles, you're going to have a little bit different speed, and it takes a lot of energy to be able to very quickly know where you need to get the car to in order to make that corner as best as you can. And now Chris Stevens.
This is slow.
3 people. Triple commentary. It's Backerton. Yeah, that is probably a record. Backerton, though, starting to force the issue with Stevens, looking for the inside line, a very, very inside line. Maybe a little bit of switcheroo here as we head onto the Mistral Straight. He's
there goes
very
Grant.
Close.
I think Graham actually pulled that back in, but that was a big old drift.
Whew. I don't think we award points for drifting, but then again, I'm not the one dishing out the points. So on the back straight, you see just how much Backerton suffers with this lack of top end from the Porsche. He stepped out of the slipstream for a moment to try to make a move stick onto Stevens, but the second he steps out, he's got nothing, and if my ears don't deceive me, we've got 3 wide here. Skeptura in the mix. There's a BMW sandwiched in the middle. Thankfully, though, everybody managing to keep the cars from spinning out and holding on to position. Around the outside goes Backerton very late on the brakes, and he is trying to swing it all the way around, but that's going to open up the door on the inside for Skeptura. No chance there, as it is going to be Backerton swooping back in and barely holding on to that top 10.
Skeptura seemed to be setting up the switchback at the end of Mistral, which I'm actually interested if that would work. Braking a little bit earlier down the outside and then sweeping on the inside to set yourself up for the next turn. Almost pulled it off, but it's a difficult place to pull that move off.
It takes a lot of bravery and a lot of just knowledge of your car and your track and your opponent.
Well, especially when you're not just fighting one-on-one and you've got another car in the way too. That's a whole nother amount to navigate and think about when you're in the middle of a braking zone.
Yep, and Davis showing us exactly how much brain power you need with some of these overtakes. Pulls to the inside and then the outside onto Steele. This is going to be the fight for P3. Neither driver giving in. Is that Steele spinning out? No, it's not.
Backerton and Skeptura, pardon me for jumping in, have just made contact. A considerable contact, and I believe it's Skeptura is spun.
Skeptura, no, Skeptura's ahead. He's managed to pull away. Backerton running very much outside the lines, away from Hasser. I don't know how well the stewards are going to like that. But Steve Davis and John Steele, these two going back and forth right now, even though Davis is dealing with Steele in that slipstream. It's the BMW. There's not a lot of top end when it comes to this back straight, and the inside line continues to be Davis's piece of real estate and maintains a P3. John Steele is definitely looking to take that away from him in the next 22 minutes.
So it certainly seems like Stevens dropped a bit. I imagine he was caught up in the Backerton. Maybe Backerton and Skeptura. Scuffle there.
I may very well have misseen it. There was somebody got spun back there. And yes, by the timing, it looks like Stevens is a likely suspect. I shouldn't say suspect, likely victim.
Well, talking about stewards, I wonder how they look at Backerton and Skeptura getting into a crash early on, which wasn't their fault. But then, pitting the safety car, you go back out and you fight and you hit each other again. Rubbin's racing, but I don't know. I maybe be a little bit more cautious if that had already happened.
I was actually on the brink of mentioning that it was getting a little... you could see the patience running out and the aggression coming up. And then before I could even say the sentence, we saw the results. So.
Well, there's... I mean, you could argue it's last race of the season. You might as well go for some questionable moves, but that could have a bit of an impact on returning racers for next season. I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that the stewards and those in charge of actually setting up the Sprint Series are definitely do look at driver behavior on track. So something like this may not be too well liked by those in the higher powers. And
there is a license point system,
yep.
And for incidents which are considered to be your fault. And I believe it's technically still under discussion, but the idea, as I understand it, is that those will carry over from season to season.
Ooh,
there may be some way to mitigate them, where if you do X many races without any, you maybe get one taken off. But that's all speculation at this point. But I believe the latest thing I heard was that they will carry over from season to season.
That is very interesting, because if you just say, hey, your license is good for this one season, then we give you a new one, that doesn't really incentivize clean driving. That some malicious character might say, oh, well, I could do this and this during these races, and I'll be fine because next season I'll have a clean slate, but carrying that over has a lot more weight to it, because now what you have to worry about is, you know, you may have a couple of incidences here and there, but when you start the next season, you're going to have those still. Meanwhile, you're going to have drivers who have nothing on their license, or new drivers who are completely new, and that puts a little bit of pressure on you, because now you have to be extra careful, not only with those drivers you've already raced with, but those new drivers, because you don't know how they drive. You have to take some time to figure that out, and you know for a fact that if you're not paying attention and you get into these accidents, that could spell trouble for you.
Well, speaking of pressure, this is John Steele dropping back. Briscoe finally got past, and now another BMW comes up for the fight. I don't know if it was a mistake, and now this BMW is getting in the slipstream, but if Steele keeps moving backwards, that'll make it real interesting as Backerton comes up.
Yeah, Backerton only in P8 right now, along with, well, actually, there's a 2-second gap to Skeptura. So right now this oh, hold on, P4 right now, John Steele having to stick that Porsche on the inside at the end of the Mistral Straight to keep Brooke at bay. But as I was saying, from Brooke down to Williams, Backerton, Skeptura, and even Hasser to some extent, they're all sort of just on their own right now. There's really no slipstream, and for someone like Backerton, who is in the Porsche, that is going to be a big hit to just his overall pace compared to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Williams started on pole. Is that what we said earlier? And so Williams, you know, an AM, is dropping back to 7th. Now Backerton's in front. You're really not able to follow someone that's that much slower and sort of time things to be right behind them for, let's say, half a lap or even, you know, a whole lap, so that you get that slipstream and really catch back up. You might just fly right past them at a completely inopportune moment, and then again, you've now got their distance to the next person, right? If Williams is 4 seconds off, as soon as you get up to him, now you're 4 seconds off, and there goes the slipstream again.
Yes.
It's an unfortunate case when it comes to this track. It's, you know, a lot of the overtakes are happening on that backstraight, and when you're not in the slipstream, you're not in the tow, you're not getting an advantage. And if you're someone behind you within that 7/10, you're more than likely going to lose that position. So being able to pull away from drivers is one thing, but sometimes it's a bit more advantageous to just stick with them, even though you may be faster overall. You can just pay to sit behind them, because you know that you will be able to overtake once you get to the Mistral Straight. Like Keith Briscoe is sort of lining up on Louis for P3.
There's a lot of strategy to sort of slingshot each other. I mean, I'll bring up Spec Miata again. They do that a lot, but you can do this where if you have two people together and there's someone way up in front, let's say the leader, you can try to catch up to the leader by purposely doing this sort of slingshot back forth, because as soon as you start actually fighting each other, you'll lose time to the next car up every single time. It's always slower to actually be in a battle.
Yep, absolutely. And, well, a lot of these battles getting resolved rather quickly as Williams has to step out of that P7 and give Backerton that. So Backerton, despite the gap to Williams, has been more than able to make up that time. Tim Brook here on the inside of John Steele into the final corner. There's a bit of a switch back there for the Porsche, but there is not a lot of room. But as I say that, getting on the power, it's door to door here down this front straight into turn 1. Who is going to be the last of the late breakers? Here we go into the braking zone, and at the same time, oh, it looks like actually John Steele was last of the brakes. We're still door to door here into the inside of the corner, and Steele keeps that position in check. Incredible stuff.
That was a lot of curb for Steele. That's impressive, holding on to that.
Yes, that is. And you know, these curbs, we've said it before, you know, they don't look too threatening, but you get on them just the wrong way and you are spinning off. So huge shout outs to Steele for being able to just keep that Porsche lined up despite, like you said, taking all that curb.
Yep, and that fight's going to bring Backerton right up behind him.
It is.
And if we look forward too, Louis dropped out a second down to 4th, was holding second for a while, but now is dropping through the ranks. This is getting another sort of sandwich coming where you have some slower people moving back into some faster people.
Yep, and even with the slipstream, Brooke is struggling to pull ahead of this Porsche, which is very surprising. Steele is really just doing a great job hanging in there, and as I say that, Brooke able to sling it around the outside and take that P5 away. Backerton, though, very much a threat. He knows there's blood in the water, and like a shark going right to it, he knows these two are going to keep fighting.
15 minutes is certainly enough time to make another few spaces up.
Yeah, and if Backerton plays his cards right, you know, he'll pick up that top 5 finish, which would be a really good way to end off his season. But knowing him, he'll probably find a way to go a little further than that. But yeah, 15 minutes, still a lot of time. Sean Williams here struggling, just so many issues right now. Just all the pressure, especially starting up front and starting to lose positions. And Skeptura, who was running with Backerton for quite a long time, has lost so much of that, and just now getting around the McLaren.
It looks like Graham's following Hasser pretty well too back there. I believe the Mercedes was fighting with, I think, the Lamborghini for a while, but she seems to have moved up a bit. Hopefully that means they can sort of pull each other back into the fight too. Like we've seen Williams is dropping back. This might get Hasser into the E9, Graham maybe into P10. Everyone's sort of moving up the line there.
Yeah, a lot of strategy between drivers, even if none of them are on a team. There's still that silent, silent voice that everybody is contributing to. You see it a lot in a lot of team games, even, games without microphones. You still find a way to sort of communicate, and especially with racing, we see it a lot in real life racing where two drivers are going to realize, hey, like, we're both faster together, and you can almost sense that, like, telepathic message of, hey, slipstream off of me and then I'll slipstream off of you, and we'll keep doing this until we catch up. It's sort of like, tandem drafting in NASCAR, where two drivers work together and they, get back up to the front.
And Spec Miata.
Spec Miata, you have a lot of experience in that.
I do have a Miata.
Anytime you've got similar cars, that's going to be, every advantage is it's a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why the Porsche Cup, Porsche BMW Cup, those are really fun races to watch.
Yep, because you have all these different manufacturers in this series. There's different strengths they have. For example, the McLaren is, really good in a straight line. You've got things like the BMW, which is a little bit, not as quick, but definitely has maybe a little bit more maneuverability in those slower corners. And then you have something like the Porsche, which once she is sort of tamer, she's easier to drive. But, when you have the same manufacturer, like you said, Sam, it is a lot more in-depth knowledge than I think people really realize.
Yeah, actually, talking about the Porsche, my endurance team we're running the Porsche. We were, qualifying for Paul Ricard, trying to set up something that would work for, well, people who are driving something that dangerous. And I kept hearing, oh, no, just, no downforce, just send it. As soon as I tried that, I mean, yeah, you can get back some of that speed you'd be missing in the straight, but it's so hard to take handle of it and really control it. And right here, I mean, this is both of them going through the fastest turn. It's going to be very interesting to see who comes out of this.
Yeah, Backerton bumping into the back of Steele. I don't want to call that a bump draft, but you could certainly argue it looks like it, but I don't think it is. I think it might have just been a case of having a little too much speed and the gap closed right up. So Backerton is able to just grab a quick P6, and now eyeing up Brooke for that P5.
I'm thinking Backerton's done a good job of just sort of taking advantage of the people's mistakes as he comes up on them. It's not so much that I've seen him do really great strategic overtakes. It's you just sort of come up, follow, and then they go wide, and just immediately you are there. You are ready for that mistake.
Yeah, I think that's one of his strong suit, and especially because you know who Backerton is. You see him at the top of the timing charts every single time, and when you have a driver of that magnitude behind you, you get a little nervous. You're like, oh, shouldn't I be behind him? And then that might, for a split second, make you miss a braking point, and then that's where Backerton really just shines.
It's also where you have that decision to make as well as the slower driver. You look, at least I do, I look up at the clock. Can I keep this person behind me for 10 minutes and 15 seconds? No. So I'm going to let them go, get on their bumper, and see if they can draft me up Mistral and get me a couple kilometers an hour and maybe help me close the gap to the person that I'm actually racing ahead of me. But on the other side of it, if that says 2 minutes, then maybe I can hold somebody that fast off for 2 laps. So then you give it a go.
It's a lot to ask, though, for any driver, really. It's quite the task.
Well, so in ACC racing, in a community like this, you have this sort of unique touch compared to, like real racing, where your team might just be a rival of that team, or I'm just going to dive on them and we're going to see what happens. But we have to talk to each other later.
It's especially hard when someone makes a race deciding error and there's nothing much you can really do, and there's this person did this and this person did that, and it's definitely I assume a very interesting conversation to be having.
Graham finally got past Hasser in P10. That's a great move for her after kind of moving backwards a little bit once the Backert and Sceptura mistakes came out of the pits. Seems like getting a good fight back up into P10.
Yeah, it's quite inspiring to watch. So now this is the point that Kevin made. Graham's looking up at the clock. Can I keep this BMW of Hasser behind me for another 8 minutes and 40 seconds?
Seemed like a lot of people were spreading out 2 minutes between, but Brooke pulled within a minute of Louis, and now Backerton's up there. I mean, it's not DRS in F1, but it might as well be.
No, you're 100% right, but Brooke is a lot closer to Louis than Backerton is to Brooke. So this will be... this could get very interesting very, very quickly, because Brooke's going to be able to pull away and then get alongside, and that could bring Backerton a lot closer, because then these two may back out of each other's little battle door to door at the end of the straight here. So, this is gonna be very scary to watch.
Looks like that didn't actually help so much. That's interesting. The slipstream doesn't seem to have pulled that BMW up as much as I thought it would.
No, but you do see how much time Backerton's lost to these two, as down the inside Brooke goes on to Louis. Louis not even gonna try to defend that one, just gonna let the car on through, maybe realizing this thing that Kevin mentioned earlier, that this person's faster. I'm just gonna let them through and then try to slipstream off of them to, in this case, pull away from Backerton.
The other thing I saw there as well is, if I'm not mistaken, that BMW looks like it's packing a lot more downforce. So it couldn't make up that time on the straightaway, but as soon as they got to the twisty bits, it's opened up this gap.
The sort of inverse that happens when you have someone following you that's faster, rather than thinking, oh, can I stay in front of them or let them pass or whatever, one of the issues, you start out driving yourself too, thinking, I can actually brake a little bit later, I can do this. Especially even as they do pass you, go, that guy is so good, or that girl is amazing at that driving, I'm gonna follow their line. And you just need to stick to your line. You just stick to what you know. If you're that far mismatched, it's better to just be consistent.
Yep.
Yes. And Backerton into the top 5.
And because Brooks up ahead and he knows he's probably got the pace, this could be a P4. Keith Briscoe has a lot of work to do. I mean, it's a very significant gap down to Brooke, absolutely. But the thing is, this is Backerton. We know what he's capable of, and very likely, I would not be surprised if Backerton wasn't all over the tailpipe of Briscoe by the end of this.
Certainly looks like Sceptura's rise slowed down a bit. They were following Backerton pretty much through the lower numbers there, but they seem to have gotten held up in the middle. There's a couple different pros and pro-ams all in that same area, so it's not exactly the same hierarchy you might expect in a normal race. Even 25 minutes in after the safety car, it's not exactly as aligned as maybe it could be.
Yeah, no, Backerton missing his brake marker. This is the thing with some of these corners is, you miss it by just a little bit, and all of a sudden, well, you're off and about. You gotta hop back here. Dave Hasser with Graham rather close again.
Yeah, they swapped again, I guess.
So yeah, these two maybe just having a little bit of a battle. You see the front end of Hasser's car. My God, that thing has seen better days. Very, very scuffed, very roughed up, but still able to point in relatively the right direction. Up front, though, Sanchez slowly has been losing time to Davis lap after lap, as his gap was about 2 seconds by this point last lap, and now it's 3/10 as we get ready to go onto the Mistral Straight. Davis going to be using the slipstream from Sanchez to pull away from Briscoe behind, but he has to be careful. If he gets the move done, there is going to be a possible retaliation from Sanchez with that higher downforce.
Well, Kevin, look up. Is 4 minutes too long to keep him behind, or what do you think?
At 4 minutes, I'm going to try. That's for at least what they've done here. Take that defensive line. I don't know about the. No, that's not a good thing. On the right side, they did back out and not take any advantage from that move. That might be taken into account, but that was almost a pit maneuver at 250 kilometers an hour, and I don't think it's done.
Oh my God, that's scary close. Incredible stuff from Davis, even with that tap. And you saw how much his car was swinging side to side, was just able to keep things together. I mean, that's. And
this is for the win too. This is for the win too. So this is 3.5 minutes fighting for the win. Yes, I'm trying to keep him behind me. There's no question at this point.
It almost looked like Davis would have ended up pit maneuvering himself because he pulled past Sanchez, and I'm assuming he had the radar open, and it would have shown him being ahead, but sometimes that's a little bit misleading, I feel like. And came back over. Thankfully there was just enough room between them, so that way he didn't end up accidentally removing himself from this plane of existence. But it's still an incredible thing to witness. And what's incredible to witness is Tim Brook having to feel the wrath of Vulcan Backerton, who in the slipstream is going down into turn 1. A couple of laps to go for Backerton to try to recover. I highly doubt he's going to get to Keith Briscoe by the checkered flag, but a 4th place will definitely be incredible, starting P12 and then effectively starting P13 after the start, and then climbing his way all the way back up. And well, here's Graham getting around the stricken BMW of Hasser.
It's going to be interesting in the last few moves on Backerton, because great drivers somehow can do fight after fight after fight and still conserve their tires. But it's not that long of a race. But when you've fought from P13 all the way up and you've had to go around and go off a little bit, are they able to fight in the same way? Are they able to keep the same sort of G-forces in the turns? Seems like might get the move done here, but I don't know about any further.
Once again, though, pulling out, and that Porsche just hits the wall. It just does not have the power to drive itself to the high speed some of the get to.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about, and how quickly things can also just change in general. And Steve Davis has gotten the move done on Sanchez, and now Briscoe going to eye up a piece of that McLaren. As we get ready for the last lap, Steve Davis will lead us across to the white flag one more time for these boys and girls here in North American Druid Split. What a season.
So it looks like Backerton's going to get past Brook, and then there's another fight back with Skaptura fighting on Steel, and the Hasser-Graham fight's going on. This will be interesting all the way in the last lap.
Yep, to the inside, pulls Backerton and breaks at the same time as Brook is not able to get that move done just yet, but knows, hey, Got a nice long 24 seconds straight to work with. I might as well just use it there. Could have gone for the move. Absolutely, the knee-jerk reaction is to get the move done, but you're in the Porsche against a BMW, which is going to have a higher top end than you. So the best part, or the best move, is to just stick behind, use the slipstream, and then get around by the end of the Mistral straight. But we also have to worry about is Sanchez as well, giving the slipstream to Briscoe, who is going to force the issue and is just going to blow on by. Oh, almost looked like another possible pit maneuver, and now it's Sanchez in the slipstream, but just all that downforce is being a huge hindrance. He's pulling back up, but I don't think he's going to have enough speed by the end of the straight to make this work, and he's got to go the long way around the outside, and a very good defensive move from Briscoe.
I want to point out there's also a battle going on at the very back. Seems like Duarte finally caught up after the big issue in the beginning, so when this race ends, let's jump back there and see those guys.
Yep, we got a lot of battles. Steele losing a position to Scapatura on this last lap lunge. But right now, we just check back up front. Tim Brook, door-to-door with Backerton. This is for P4. Backerton with that inside line as he comes down. He's going to get this move done. But ladies and gentlemen, to cap off an amazing Season 10, the man joining us from the land of kangaroos and koalas, it is Steve Davis, powering his way down the start-finish straight and wins here at Le Castellet. Keith Briscoe joining him second place, and Eduardo Sanchez making it P3. Backerton has gotten around Brook 4 and 5. It's Michael Louis P6. John Steele losing out to Scapatura here, 7 and 8 for them. Sean Williams in no man's land makes it P9. Dave Hasser picks up 5 seconds, and Graham as well. So it's gonna
they must
be
have come together.
Oh, it must have been. Yeah, you're right. So Hasser will be able to cross the line, and it's not gonna matter because of these penalties. So we look back. Chris Stevens holding on for dear life. Duarte after a terrible start, starting in the back now after the safety car, and he's gonna go into the back of his fellow Lamborghini driver. Stevens not gonna be too happy, but Duarte more than willing to give that position back. And gentlemen, I think this may be the cherry on top.
Last place, last lap, you have to send it.
Absolutely.
You gotta send
and
it
on
to
the
that
other
corner.
side of it, when you send it and you stuff them, brakes and let them go. Redress immediately, and hopefully that means there won't be any penalties.
But gentlemen, we've reached the end of the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series Season 10, and what a way to send it out. Incredible stuff from all of these drivers.
That is one of the nice things about the super sprints. When you have a pack that is smaller, you know, we only have 14 entrants, then it does seem like more of a fight the entire time. You might be able to stick closer, stay on the lead lap, and you really don't have any sort of pit strategy that can go wrong.
And of all the tracks to not have to worry about in and out of the pits, this is one. That pit exit is, there's just no good way to blend. Somebody has to give up, either the person on the track or the person coming out of pit lane. I'm not particularly fond of the closing speeds that can involve in that corner, especially with the very short amount of warning you get that they're coming out. So.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm glad we didn't have to deal with. But ladies and gentlemen, one last time, of course, through the results. So overall, race number 1, it is Backerton on top, Brook and Briscoe making it onto the podium. Pro-Am, Briscoe, Scapatura, and Davis. Amateur class, of course, Williams by himself, and of course the safety car. Can't count out the safety car. Race number 2 overall, Steve Davis picking up a very surprising win over Briscoe and Sanchez onto the podium just in time for Mexican Independence Day tomorrow. And then Pro-Am, it's Davis, Briscoe, Sanchez. So your top 3, also your top 3 Pro-Ams. Amateur is Sean Williams, and of course safety car rounding up. But gentlemen, end of the season, what are the plans for the break? What are the plans for this upcoming SimRig Sprint Series?
I think if we can get a few more people, maybe the fact that it is, sponsored will help out. Maybe summer's coming to an end, and at least, in our hemisphere here, and people are going back to school. If NA can pick up, that'd be really great for the next season. I'd like to, keep commentating. I'd like to keep driving, but I might have to go back to Mario Kart.
Very intense stuff. Very sim-heavy stuff.
It has been a pleasure announcing this. It has been so much fun and such a learning. Very much looking forward to coming back for next year as a driver and as a commentator. And I have to believe that the tracks for next year will be a little more suitable for the Bimmer again, because I don't like signaling. So.
Oh, Kevin, you're too much.
Also next
also
season.
got,
I hope not next year.
Yeah, next season.
Yes, pardon me, next season. And I will use this to drop a, if you needed a reason to come and watch, you got to come and watch next year, just because we've got custom liveries allowed now in the sprint season, and there are some that are going to be very, very impressive, and some that are going to be quite amusing.
I can't wait to see what creativity reigns in the sprint series. But gentlemen, closing thoughts, anything before we send things out?
Just a good race, just nice to watch and close out on. Sad that we're done for a few weeks, of course. For sim racers, they're always going to be driving, but hopefully, we'll all come back refreshed and ready to go again.
I want to take this opportunity to do a huge thank you to Octane Online Racing. Not only are they providing racing on, I think we figured this out, 6 out of 7 continents, I think we have people racing from.
I'm going to move to Antarctica real quick.
We got to get somebody down there. But on top of that, it's a positive and supportive and inclusive community. And particularly the sim racing community is, shall we say, not famous for that. So it's a great place to come and race, even if you're not running at the front. Nobody's going to call you out. Nobody's going to call you names. Come in and play. Have some fun with us. As myself has proved, you don't need a whole lot of talent. Just don't run into people, and you can come and play. And it is a really good time with really good people.
And hey, you hear our voices here, you see the safety car, but there's stewards, there's, people who are hosting or setting this up. There's so many people that work very hard to give us almost a, professional level experience like you would always love to do as a sim driver. So, come in, join, and volunteer, participate.
Absolutely. Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. But ladies and gentlemen, for the last time, on behalf of myself, Kevin Parody, Sam Raworth, and everybody here at the OOR, we'd like to thank you so much for your continued support of not just the Sprint Series, but everything else that we've got going on here in the OOR community. There's going to be a month between now and the start of the next Sprint season, sponsored, of course, by SimRigs. Very happy to have them on board. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay beautiful, and keep that car between those white lines.